Chapter 1893. They had only heard about the tit-for-tat between the two great factions, but they did not know the extent of the actual situation. At that moment, the Baiwa sect master could not help but laugh. "Lord, you are flattering me. How can I influence your choice?" Master Bao Kun said sincerely, "I am serious. Whoever you choose, I will also choose." The Baiwa sect master became serious. "If that is the case, I will have to consider it carefully. I cannot let you down." At that moment, the expressions of the green netherworld manor master and the manor master changed drastically. Doesn't this mean that whoever gets the Baiwa sect master's approval can become the alliance master? The Saint Maiden's expression also changed. When she noticed the manor master's regretful expression, the gloom in her heart was swept away. Although she did not know what was going on, it was a great relief. "Didn't you look down on the Baiwa sect? Alright, you can just watch the alliance leader election this time." She signaled to the Baiwa sect master to choose the green netherworld manor master to vent her anger. However, the Baiwa sect master did not seem to hear her, and he was deep in thought. At that moment, all the people present were looking at Suyu, and the tense atmosphere slowly spread. The manor master clenched his teeth slightly and squeezed out a smile. He cupped his fists and said, "I have always heard that the Baiwa sect master is wise. In just a few hundred years, you have established such a great foundation for the Baiwa sect. This is truly unprecedented. It is no wonder that even Lord Bao Kun asked for your opinion. It really puts me to shame." Compared to his undisguised contempt just now, he was now shamelessly flattering the sect master. His face was not red, and his heart was not beating fast. It was as if he was a completely different person. The Saint Maiden could not help but sit up straight. She secretly felt proud, and her face was full of pride. As the Saint Maiden of the Baiwa sect, she was bound to win or lose together. She also felt proud that the Baiwa sect was praised. She indifferently glanced at the manor master, feeling disgusted. What a two-faced villain! With such a person leading the alliance of the 5 factions, she could not imagine what would happen in the future. No matter who the sect master approves as the alliance master this time, I want to have a good talk with the sect master. It was clear that he wanted to give him some benefits. Beside him, the manor master's wife smiled sweetly. "That's right, Cult Master. I've long heard of Cult Master's great name and have always wanted to meet you. You must stay after this. My husband and I will have a serious chat with you." Her expression revealed a faintly discernible charm, which made the saintess frown. Honey trap? The manor lord was really willing to part with such a delicate, young, and beautiful wife. However, based on her understanding of the Lord of Bayou, he was not a womanizer. At least, she had never seen him touch any of the outstanding women in the headquarters. She wasn't worried about that. Is that so? Then it would be impolite for me to refuse. The Reverend Moon-worshipping cult master smiled, and said to honored Master Bao Kun, "I think Manor Master is more suitable to lead us. What do you think?" Master Bao Kun nodded. "Since Cult Master thinks so, I will naturally choose Villa Master." Hearing this, the saintess was stunned. When she regained her composure, she was furious. Did he forget how the manor lord had humiliated them just now? How could he forget so quickly? He couldn't even resist a little beauty. It made her want to strangle him to death. There were so many beautiful women in the headquarters, yet he didn't care about them at all. Just a sentence from the manor lord's wife had made him fall head over heels for her. Feeling the murderous gaze from the saintess, Suyu shrugged his shoulders. He naturally had his reasons for choosing the manor lord. As for the scabbard that the green underworld manor master had mentioned, he had already made arrangements in secret. Sooner or later, he would get it. Hence, there was no need for him to support the scabbard. On the other hand, without the manor lord's approval, it was impossible to enter the Fengyun ancient tomb. Using his support in exchange for a chance to enter the tomb was a very good deal. As for the humiliation, after obtaining the emperor-killing sword, he would return it 100-fold. The Green Underworld Manor Master was extremely disappointed, but he couldn't do anything about it. After thinking for a moment, he didn't give up on joining the 5-faction alliance. The Manor Lord's offer was indeed very tempting, and he couldn't resist it. Moreover, if the 4-faction alliance was formed, only the Green Underworld Manor wouldn't be involved. As long as there was news of the Emperor-killing sword, it would be difficult for the Green Underworld Manor to share it. Since that was the case, he might as well join the alliance and wait for the Emperor-killing sword to settle. It wouldn't be too late to withdraw then. He stood up and forced a smile as he cupped his fist. "Congratulations, Alliance Master!" The Manor Lord's lips curled into a smile, and he couldn't help but laugh loudly. Although there were some twists and turns, he had finally gotten what he wanted. The moon-worshipping sex master was the one who had contributed the most. He had decided on the Alliance Master with a single thought. A smile appeared on his face, and he looked at the moon-worshipping sex master with a much more passionate gaze. He laughed loudly and said, "Rest assured, Sect Master. I will let you know that choosing me is not wrong." At the same time, he made a promise to the others. "Everyone, today's Alliance meet will end here. I will spend the night drafting the Alliance document. Please stay in the manor for the time being. The day the document is signed will be the day the Fongyan ancient tomb will be opened." Regarding this, no one had any objections. Under the arrangement of a few disciples, they were all led to their respective guest rooms. This time, it was the eldest disciple, Emogon, who led the way for the moon-worshipping sect. Only then did the Saint Maiden's indignation settle down. However, her eyes were still very unfriendly as she stared at Suyu. Sure enough, as soon as the door was closed, the Saint Maiden went straight to the point. "I really don't understand why you would choose the Manor Master of the Fongyan Manor as the Alliance Master. Have you forgotten how he treated us before?" He had already expected that the Saint Maiden would have objections, so he smiled. "Calm down, Saint Maiden. Isn't he very polite now? Why do you have to take it to heart? Are you saying that I'm very petty?" The Saint Maiden squinted her eyes. "Suyu said. You said it yourself, I didn't." "Humph." The Saint Maiden snorted softly and did not question him further. The Manor Master's sudden change in attitude made her feel much better, and her anger dissipated. After thinking about it calmly, the current situation was indeed the best choice. Although the Green Netherworld Manor's master's promise was tempting, his mysterious attitude made her feel slightly unreliable. The Fongyan ancient tomb was more practical. Forget it, let's let bygones be bygones this time. But next time, when it concerns the moon-worshipping cult's honor, I hope you can be more sensitive," the Saint Maiden said. She was still upset about the moon-worshipping cult's master ignoring the White Dragon City. As she thought about it, she stared at Suyu suspiciously. "What's going on between you and Lord Baokuan?" Suyu's face was filled with helplessness and confusion. "Why are you asking me? That Lord Baokuan usually doesn't interact with us, but today he suddenly listened to my opinion. To be honest, I was quite surprised. I thought he was going to go against me. Do you know what happened to Lord Baokuan recently? I feel like there's something wrong with him." The Saint Maiden panicked. She knew that Lord Baokuan was already dead, and the person in front of her was an impostor. Could it be that the person who impersonated Lord Baokuan was not confident enough, so he chose to befriend the moon-worshipping cult? That seemed to be the only plausible explanation. "Oh, I don't know, but it's not a bad thing, is it?" the Saint Maiden said guiltily. Suyu frowned and said coldly, "What's good about it? How many followers of the White Dragon mountain range have died because of him? Sooner or later, I'll take his life as a sacrifice to the disciples who died in vain to avenge this blood feud." "Don't," the Saint Maiden said hurriedly. "What if he is innocent?" "Oh?" Suyu laughed secretly. The Saint Maiden was really protecting the impostor Lord Baokuan. Could it be that she had developed a good impression of his identity in the secret realm? Innocent? He killed so many people, and he still has the cheek to talk about being innocent? Saint Maiden, your standpoint is very problematic. You're actually speaking up for Lord Baokuan. I remember that last time, you forced me to avenge the disciples of the White Dragon Mountain Range. Why have you changed your mind now? Su Yu stared at her suspiciously. The Saint Maiden became even more flustered, and she hurriedly explained, You! What nonsense are you talking about? I am the Saint Maiden of the moon-worshipping cult, and I can't possibly betray the enemy. I just hope that you can investigate this matter thoroughly. She was speechless, but she couldn't explain that the current Lord Baokuan wasn't the real Lord Baokuan, which would lead to the suspicion of the moon-worshipping cult master. Humph! What you said just now shows that you've made a serious mistake in your thinking. Go back to your room immediately and reflect on it. Su Yu reprimanded her sternly. Otherwise, I have reason to doubt whether you're still qualified to be the Saint Maiden of the moon-worshipping cult. The Saint Maiden was at a loss for words, and she said weakly, I didn't. Still quibbling? Go back and reflect on it immediately. The Saint Maiden bit her red lips. It was the first time that the moon-worshipping cult master dared to lose his temper at her like that. Coupled with the fact that she was in the wrong, she obediently lowered her head and left, returning to her room. After she left, the corners of Su Yu's mouth curled into a smile. Haha, it feels so good to teach the Saint Maiden a lesson. Usually, the Saint Maiden was the one lecturing him with a haughty expression. Today, he finally got the chance to reprimand her. Of course, he didn't reprimand the Saint Maiden for her bad taste. He drove her away because he had a more important matter to attend to on his own. Gu Xing had come to the villa as he wished, so it was only a matter of time before he recovered his memories. He needed to monitor his every move closely, and it would be best to find the person who had contacted him as soon as possible. With that in mind, he was about to leave quietly when a fragrant breeze drifted in from outside the door. An enchanting figure could be vaguely seen. Cult Master, can I come in? The Cult Master's wife? Su Yu didn't have to look at her deliberately to feel her soul and the unique, powerful yin and yang energies. Why was she here? Was she really here to seduce him? Su Yu walked over and opened the door. A pretty face came into view, and the pair of bright eyes stared at the cult master with a smile. My husband ordered me to bring you a pot of good wine. Su Yu was about to take it with his hand, but the manor master's wife avoided it with a smile. Cult master, are you not going to let me in? Or is it inconvenient now? She really knew how to pick the right time. Su Yu frowned and said calmly, Madam, you must be joking. Please come in. He opened the door and let the manor master's wife enter. When Su Yu closed the door and turned around, a fragrant breeze hit him, and a warm and plump body lay in his arms. It was the manor master's wife who had thrown herself into his arms. Was she serious? He didn't think that a person like the manor master would really let him play with his beautiful wife. Was she testing him? Su Yu pushed her away gently and said calmly, Madam, it's not clear what a man and a woman should do. Please behave yourself. Unexpectedly, the manor master's wife was embarrassed and angry. She pinched Su Yu's arm hard. You devil! It's fine that you didn't come to see me for 3 years, but why did you change the way you address me? You used to call me Little Ying, but now you call me Manor Master's wife. You're so annoying. With a soft snort, she threw herself into Su Yu's arms again. Chapter 1894. Ahem, madam, I am the Baiwa sect master. Have you mistaken me for someone else? Su Yu pushed her away again, his mind racing. What's going on? Is she really acting, or does she really have an ambiguous relationship with the Baiwa sect master? If it was the latter, it would be too shocking. The Baiwa sect master, the weakest of the 10 great influences, had seduced the wife of the Wind Cloud Manor's master. No one would believe it. You devil, aren't you serious? You've known me for decades. Isn't it too late to get rid of me now? The manor master's wife said unhappily. Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't help but admire the Baiwa sect master's ability. How could he make the manor master's wife marry him? After thinking for a while, Su Yu stretched out his arms and pulled her into his arms. He chuckled and said, "You're really angry. We haven't seen each other for 3 years, so I'm just teasing you." The manor master's wife's face brightened. She threw herself into his arms with a smile and said, "That's more like it." Su Yu listened to her for a while, then said carefully, "It's getting late. You'd better go back before the manor master finds out. Look at you. You weren't this timid when you seduced me." The manor master's wife poked at his forehead, her almond-shaped eyes giving him a charming look. She then smiled and said, "Don't worry. That old thing is busy preparing for his appointment as the alliance master of the 5 factions. He doesn't have time to care about me." As she spoke, she slowly untied Su Yu's robe and said, "We haven't had sex for so long. Do you want to?" Su Yu was startled. He wasn't interested in sex at all. Even if he was, once he untied his robe, his true appearance would be exposed. "Hey, why are you in such a hurry? We'll have plenty of time to spend together in the future. Why do you care about this?" Su Yu said casually, rejecting her request to have sex with him. The manor master's wife was displeased at first, but as she listened, she nodded slightly. Her face was cold as she sneered and said, "That's right. Soon, this old thing won't have a place in the manor, and I'll be in charge." Su Yu had said it casually, but it seemed to have elicited an incredible piece of information. His heart moved and he probed, "Little Ying, are you ready? That old fella's strength has reached the late stage of a 3-crown emperor. Once he discovers your intentions, he will become furious, and no one will be able to stop him." Hearing this, the manor lord's wife sneered, "Him? If he hadn't opened the wind-cloud ancient tomb, I wouldn't have had the confidence to do so. But he brought this upon himself and insisted on opening it. I'll make sure he never returns." She wanted to kill the master of Windcloud Heights? Where did this woman get her confidence from? Moreover, it seemed to be related to the Wind-Cloud ancient tomb. Rolling his eyes, Su Yu asked, "Shouldn't you tell me some insider information about the Fengyan ancient tomb? At least I'll be mentally prepared." The manor lord's wife blinked her bright eyes and said with a smile, "All right, give me a kiss." This, Su Yu was hesitant. He did not want to sacrifice his body at all. Although the manor lord's wife was stunningly beautiful, she really didn't want to be so close to strangers. "I knew you wouldn't agree." The manor lord's wife immediately turned hostile. "You don't have any feelings for me at all. You've always wanted to use my identity, right?" Based on Su Yu's understanding of the Baiwa sect master, he was indeed such a person. Seeing that the situation was getting out of hand, Su Yu's mind turned quickly. His soul quickly entered the 9-jade spiritual pearl to see if there was anything he could offer to coax her. Suddenly, he discovered that the rhizome of the rootless purple royal wood that he had planted in the nursery had not only survived, but 3 seedlings had also grown beside it. With a thought, he took out one of the seedlings and placed it on his palm. "Look at this. What is this?" The manor lord's wife's pretty face turned cold. She stared at it, her eyes revealing a hint of surprise. "A seedling of the rootless purple royal wood? It looks like you've been cultivating it for more than 2 years. The cultivation speed of the 9-jade spiritual pearl in a month was indeed equivalent to more than 2 years. Su Yu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He said solemnly, "That's right. Although I haven't seen you for 2 years, I've been thinking about you all the time. This rootless purple royal wood is a product that I've been watering daily with my rules. I'll give it to you when it matures one day to help you break through to half-martial emperor." "You're saying that I'm using you?" "I really don't know what to say." Su Yu sighed, looking aggrieved. Upon hearing that, the manor lord's wife's eyes flickered. She was touched by his words. She threw herself into Su Yu's arms again and said softly, "I'm sorry. It's my fault. I shouldn't have doubted you. Su Yu's heart relaxed, and he felt a little guilty. The moon-worshipping sect master's true purpose was to use her. Once he was done using her, she would probably follow in the footsteps of the Windcloud Manor master and be erased from the world by the moon-worshipping sect master or abandoned. Now that he was pretending to be the moon-worshipping sect master and deceiving her feelings, he really shouldn't have done that. However, if she could really help him, at least Su Yu wouldn't bite the hand that fed him. He would settle her down for a stable future. It's good that you understand. It's okay for me to be doubted, Su Yu comforted her. The manor lord's wife no longer had any doubts. A long time ago, the moon-worshipping sect master had said that they would cultivate a rootless purple royal wood for her. She knew the difficulty of cultivating the rootless purple royal wood, which required the consumption of rules. She was the manor lord's wife, but she didn't see the manor lord sacrificing his own rules to help her cultivate the wood. She could imagine how difficult it was to cultivate the rootless purple royal wood. She just laughed at the moon-worshipping sect master's sweet words. She didn't expect that after so many years, he would really cultivate it and give it to her. Sweetheart, I will never doubt you again. The manor lord's wife's eyes were full of tenderness. She took out a piece of jade from the storage space. It was a piece of jade that had recorded a voice. After crushing it, a familiar voice drifted over. The Emperor-killing sword is just a sword after all, but the alliance of the 5 factions can help me achieve unparalleled hegemony. The Windcloud Manor master said heroically. My husband, the alliance of the 5 factions is just a temporary expedient. Once the Emperor-killing sword is done, the alliance will be disbanded, the manor lord's wife said. Haha, that's if the leaders of the other 4 factions are still alive. The recording ended there, but Su Yu was greatly moved. Did the Windcloud Manor master want to eliminate the leaders of the other 4 factions, completely unify the 5 factions, and become the greatest force in the entire Dark Star civilization? But how could he do it? Although he was a 3-crown martial emperor at the later stage, the other 4 leaders were also 3-crown martial emperors. It would be easy for the Windcloud Manor master to defeat them, but it would be extremely difficult for him to kill them. Moreover, he could kill all 4 of them at once. Sweetheart, the Fengyan ancient tomb is full of dangers. That old B***** is probably planning to use the power of the ancient tomb to keep all of you inside. You have to be careful. The Fengyan ancient tomb. No wonder he was willing to open the ancient tomb. The alliance of the 5 factions announced to the world that the alliance of the 5 factions was one. If the leaders of the alliance of the 4 factions died quietly in the ancient tomb, the Windcloud Manor master could legitimately mobilize the 5 factions and secretly replace the core members of the other 4 factions with his own people. The entire southern forces would be in the Windcloud Manor master's pocket. What a great ambition! His plan was not only the alliance master, but the 5 forces. Fortunately, the moon-worshipping sect master left her a manor lord's wife. Otherwise, she would really be in danger in the Fengyan ancient tomb. So, it's better if I don't go to the ancient tomb? Go. Of course, you have to go. If you don't go, he will definitely be suspicious and might attack you in advance. The manor lord's wife's eyes were cold. Moreover, he wants to use the Fengyan ancient tomb to deal with you. How would he know that I want to use the seal to deal with him? Just pretend that nothing happened and go. Trust me, I will get rid of the Windcloud Manor master. From now on, the Windcloud Manor will belong to you and me. Hearing this, Su Yu was secretly curious. Where did the manor lord's wife get the confidence to keep the manor master here forever? Just like how the manor master was confident that he could kill all the leaders of the 4 great factions. Was it the mysterious seal of the Fengyan ancient tomb? After thinking for a moment, Su Yu slowly nodded. Riches came from danger. With the manor lord's wife helping him secretly, this trip might not be a narrow escape. Alright, I understand. Su Yu nodded deeply. The manor lord's wife's eyes were filled with excitement. I haven't seen you for 3 years, and you are much more decisive than before. But I like it. Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. He thought that he had been exposed. By the way, did the Manor Lord shoot the green Netherworld Manor Master's disciple? Su Yu asked. The Manor Lord's wife nodded. It's not just the Manor Lord. The other 3 great factions are all secretly monitoring him. After all, he is someone who knows where the scabbard is. Who wouldn't be monitoring him? Even a mosquito would be able to detect his existence. Su Yu's eyes flickered slightly. At the moment, Gu Xing was not only being monitored by the Green Netherworld Manor Master, but also by the leaders of the other factions. Under the surveillance of the 5 Triple Crown Emperors, it was almost impossible for his companion to pass on his memory to him. Even if his soul had passed through, it would be discovered immediately. So, how would Gu Xing's friend pass on his memory? There were few answers, and after half a month of thinking and preparation, Su Yu had come up with only a few possibilities. One of them was the most secretive and inconceivable, but it was also the most likely mysterious method to fool the 5 Triple Crown Emperors. I also have to monitor Gu Xing, so I can't accompany you tonight, Su Yu said. The Manor Lord's wife nodded. The important matter is more important. You should go. He and the Green Netherworld Manor Master are staying in the 3rd guest room. Su Yu slightly nodded. After seeing the Manor Lord's wife off, he did not go to the 3rd guest room. Because going there was no use. The method of transmitting the memory was probably beyond everyone's expectations. Su Yu turned over and lay on the bed. The oil lamp on his chest spun out. Shortly after, Su Yu clenched his fist. A mass of pink fog appeared, surrounded by pieces of law. According to what he had seen in his life, he had comprehended 10,000 divine paths and become the god of 10,000 deities, which meant he had the body of a divine path. He could use the oil lamp to temporarily transform the divine paths he had comprehended into law. Looking at the pink fog in his palm, Su Yu sighed. I never thought that I would have to use this law one day. Chapter 1895. The person sleeping was the disciple of the Green Nether Mansion Master. Gu Xing. Su Yu had learned this rule from the Red Dust Path Master, a mysterious path master who was good at dreams. With this rule, he could easily enter other people's dreams and even create his own dreams to trap others. If there was any way for them to pass on their memories, dreams were the most likely way. With that in mind, Su Yu followed the dark red dreamline and entered Gu Xing's dreamland. At this moment, he was looking at Gu Xing's dream from a third person's perspective. Gu Xing didn't notice anything in his dream and didn't know that someone else was staring at his dream. Gu Xing's dream was of a quiet valley, where hundreds of flowers were in full bloom and birds were chirping. Smoke was rising from the chimneys of a quiet village. Children were playing by the roadside, and old people were gathered at the entrance of the village to talk about the growth of this year's crops. Women were bustling about in the kitchen, preparing for the day's dinner. Oh, such a peaceful dream? Su Yu was slightly surprised. Dreams, from a certain perspective, were the reflection of a person's innermost feelings. This person called Gu Xing probably yearned for such a peaceful and ordinary life the most. As his gaze moved, it fixed on an ordinary thatched cottage. A youth with a blurred face was lying in the courtyard, holding a scroll of scripture and reciting it. This person hides his appearance, so even in the dream, his appearance is blurred. Su Yu couldn't help but be curious about this person's true identity. After reciting for a while, he rubbed the space between his brows and said doubtfully, "Strange, why do I feel so restless recently? It's as if I'm missing something important? Did I lose a precious book? Or did I forget to return the money I owed to someone when I went to the capital to take the exam?" As he was pondering, a woman with a similar blurred face suddenly walked in. She was as thin as a willow in the wind. She was so weak that she could not even withstand a gust of wind, giving off a pitiful feeling. She looked around, and under the curious gazes of the villagers, she came in front of a thatched cottage. Looking at the scholar who was reading in the cottage, she couldn't help but laugh. Haha, I didn't expect senior brother to be a scholar in your dream. How unexpected! The scholar stood up hurriedly and looked her up and down in surprise. His eyes were filled with deep doubt. Miss, do we know each other? Why do we seem to know each other? The woman covered her mouth and chuckled. That's because you've erased all your memories related to me, so of course you know who I am. But if you eat something, you'll remember. She took out a thumb-sized red fruit that was filled with memories. When Suyu saw this, he secretly understood. As expected, they completed the memory exchange in their dreams. The 5 leaders never dreamed that their surveillance would be useless. The scholar was puzzled. You want me to eat it? The woman walked over with a smile, pinched his chin, and said mischievously, Open up! Then, he threw the fruit in. Immediately after, the scholar's body shook violently. The fog in his eyes gradually dispersed and was replaced by clarity. So that's how it is. The scholar mumbled as he surveyed his surroundings. So that's my dream. His temperament changed abruptly. He was no longer a frail scholar. Instead, he was confident, calm, and extraordinarily powerful, like an emperor of the human world. Placing his hands behind his back, he slowly closed his eyes and said, The memories have returned. When he opened his eyes again, he stared at the woman in front of him with a smile. Thank you, junior sister. This time, with you, the plan can progress smoothly, and the news of the scabbard has been hidden until now. We should thank that woman for giving us so many dream fruits, the woman said. Dream fruits? Woman? Who? Suyu thought to himself. The scholar said, Yes, it's all thanks to that woman. After pausing for a moment, the scholar looked at the valley village with nostalgia, waved his big sleeves, and the dream was shattered. Unbeknownst to them, an invisible big hand passed through the dream, grabbed a faintly discernible dream fragment, and left silently, without alerting them at all. In the room, Suyu suddenly opened his eyes and opened his palm to take a look. A wriggling fragment was quickly dispersing. This was a trace of the scholar's subconscious that Suyu had grabbed before he left. It was the subconscious of the scabbard. Seeing that the fragment could not exist in the real world for too long and was about to dissipate, Suyu immediately stuck it between his eyebrows. The wisp of subconscious was quickly digested. The scabbard is... Suyu opened his eyes abruptly, his eyes filled with surprise. It's actually there. A deep solemn expression flashed across his face, and his expression kept changing for a long time. After a long while, it turned into a bitter smile. The scabbard can be anywhere, but that place is the only place where the possibility of getting it is almost zero. This Gu Xing really knows how to harm people. If he had not learned of the news in advance, he would have been at a loss when the news spread a few days later. If that's the case, I have to go there. Suyu thought for a moment, then looked at the communication jade charm on his waist. He hoped that person would be able to use it. For the next 5 days, Suyu waited quietly in the Wind Cloud Villa. From time to time, the leaders of the 4 factions would gather together to exchange pointers and discuss with each other. Suyu remained silent throughout. It was useless for him to comment on the sparring between the 3 crown emperors. However, Lord Bao Kuan had personally grabbed the emperor-killing sword, so he had a deep understanding of it. Thus, he attracted the interest of the Green Netherworld Mansion Master and the Cabinet Master of the Fengjian Pavilion. Both of them seemed to regard Lord Bao Kuan as the center of attention. At night, the 3 leaders began to secretly monitor Gu Xing's every move. It's strange. You are the most concerned about the emperor-killing sword. Why don't you have any reaction? The holy maiden had come to see the sect master. She frowned as she spoke. Suyu laughed and asked, Isn't it fine if you are monitoring Gu Xing? Humph, even if I get the news, I won't tell you. The holy maiden was speechless. The 3 leaders were monitoring him closely, so why was the sect master so relaxed? However, that was not the reason why she came. Don't you feel that something is wrong? The Holy Maiden performed an isolation divine technique and asked quietly. Suyu was surprised, but pretended to be confused. What's wrong? The Holy Maiden frowned and said, Don't you think the Wind Cloud Villa Master took too long to draft the Alliance document? She thought about it seriously. The Wind Cloud Villa Master should be determined to win the position of the Alliance Master. The Alliance document should have been prepared a long time ago. Now, he has been hiding in his room for 4 or 5 days without any movement. It's strange no matter how I think about it. Haha, the Holy Maiden is not stupid. At this moment, the Wind Cloud Villa Master must be thinking of ways to set up a trap to catch all the people except for him. You think too much. It's okay. Suyu waved his hand. It's not good to worry so much. The Holy Maiden glared at him and found it more and more difficult to work with him. What she said was based on facts, but the sect master was indifferent and did not take any precautions. Forget it, you take care of yourself. Anyway, I have to prepare more. The Holy Maiden gradually became vigilant. If she was like this, it was conceivable that the mansion master of the Green Ghost Mansion and the cabinet master of the Fengjian Pavilion were also vigilant. They were all wily old foxes, so they naturally sensed that something was wrong. On the 6th day, finally, the Wind Cloud Villa Master visited them one by one. Strangely, he was covered in dust and his breath was weak. Villa Master, what happened? The cabinet master of the Fengjian Pavilion was surprised. The eyes of the mansion master of the Green Ghost Mansion also flickered, full of suspicion. Suyu was also slightly surprised. What happened? It's a long story. Something happened in the Fengyun ancient tomb. The Wind Cloud Villa Master sighed. Hearing that, the hearts of the people present tightened. Didn't they wait here for 5 or 6 days for the Fengyun ancient tomb? If the tomb disappeared, what was the point of staying here? The mansion master of the Green Ghost Mansion said coldly, Villa Master, are you going to go back on your word? The Wind Cloud Villa Master spread out his hands helplessly. The alliance agreement has not been signed. How can I go back on my word? That's right. Since we can't enter the Fengyun ancient tomb, we have to discuss the position of the alliance master again. His eyes lit up. The Wind Cloud Villa Master shook his head. It's not that we can't enter, but it's a little troublesome. We can't open the tomb by relying on the mechanism left by our ancestors. We need everyone here to join hands. Just joining hands to open the tomb? That's not a big deal. Can the 5 of us join hands to open it? The cabinet master of the Fengjian Pavilion asked. He got an affirmative answer. Of course. I've calculated it carefully. If the 5 of us 3 Crown Emperors join hands, we can definitely open it completely, and it won't consume much desolate force. You can rest assured about that. After hearing that, everyone was completely relieved. The suspicion in their hearts also dissipated. No wonder the Wind Cloud Villa Master had not shown up for so many days. There was a problem with the opening of the tomb. Among everyone present, only Suyu retained his opinion. He glanced at the Villa Master's wife, who was accompanying the Villa Master. She also glanced at him and nodded without anyone noticing. She meant that she had prepared everything and he could rest assured. That's great. Then let's not waste any more time. Let's sign the alliance agreement of the 5 factions first, then enter the Fengyun ancient tomb. What do you think? The Wind Cloud Villa Master said. Everyone present naturally had no objections. They each took out a token that symbolized their identity and left their auras on the alliance agreement. The Wind Cloud Villa Master was overjoyed. He laughed and threw the agreement into the sky. The agreement document radiated endless ripples, sweeping across all the regions of the south. Regardless of whether they were strong or weak, a similar message appeared in the depths of everyone's heart. The alliance of the 5 factions, the Dark Star Civilization, is about to rise. The alliance master is the Wind Cloud Villa Master, as expected. This is great news. The South has always been oppressed by the big forces in the North. Now we can finally unite. I hope the Wind Cloud Villa Master can lead us to glory. Half a day later, all the creatures in the south received this message. The news that the Wind Cloud Villa Master had become the Alliance Master of the 5 factions was deeply rooted in people's hearts. Everyone knew about it. Thank you for your kindness. From today on, our 5 factions will advance and retreat together. The Wind Cloud Villa Master was very determined. He seemed to be in high spirit. The Mansion Master of the Green Nether Mansion said calmly, "The Alliance Agreement has been announced to the world. Now, it's time for the Alliance Master to fulfill his promise." Chapter 1896. The location of the Fengyun Ancient Tomb was not a secret. Almost everyone in the Fengyun Villa knew about it. It was right under their feet. Before the first master of the Fengyun Villa died, he used his great powers to retrieve 18 enormous meteorites. He melted them into one, then split them into 2. Half of them floated in the sky, which was the Fengyun Villa they saw now. The other half sunk underground, which was the empty space below the Fengyun Villa. Of the 2 halves of the meteorite, one was in the sky, the other was on the ground. One was for the living, the other for the dead. The 2 resonated with each other, forming a passage invisible to the naked eye. To enter the ancient tomb, one could only use this passage. There had been people who had tried to enter the ancient tomb from the outside world, but no one had succeeded. More accurately, only a few of those who had dared to try came back alive. Because the ancient tomb's meteorite was a body of its own, its surface flowing with nothingness. Any contact with it would be immediately swallowed by the nothingness. Forcefully breaking open the meteorite would not work. They could only use the passage. At this moment, Su Yu and the others were above the passage. This was the Manor Lord's courtyard, and there was an ancient restriction that had been preserved perfectly. After using 100 precious top-grade divine stones, the seal was finally activated, instantly transporting them away. When they reappeared, they were already on the surface of the underground meteorite through the passage. A layer of glowing seal reflected in everyone's eyes. Looking at the seal, Su Yu was secretly surprised. The master of the Green Netherworld Manor was also surprised. He exclaimed, "I've long heard that the first master of the Fengyun Villa was extremely powerful. His abilities were as powerful as the King of Darkness. Now that I see it, it is indeed true." In order to avoid unnecessary conflict, he did not say it clearly. The first master of the Fengyun Villa was the only outsider among the 10 great forces who was not from the Dark Moon clan. One could imagine how difficult it would be for a foreign race to gain a foothold in the Dark Star civilization without an invincible force. Because of this, the ancient tomb had been preserved for so long that even the 3-crown emperor could not move it. The seal in front of them was at the level of the 4-crown emperor. Under normal circumstances, even if the leaders of the 10 great forces gathered together, they would not be able to forcefully break it open. It was only because of some problems that he was barely able to open it. Look, there is a gap in the center of the seal. That is the weak point of the seal. If it was in the past, I could directly use the unsealing method passed down by my ancestors to enlarge the weak point and form a passage that one person can pass through. But now, look. The Manor Lord took out a very old jade scepter and pointed it at the weak point. Immediately, the seal shook, and the weak point quickly expanded to half a person's height. But soon after, it trembled unstably and sealed itself again. That's it. Our ancestral method of opening it is no longer effective. The Manor Lord frowned deeply and said helplessly, "The only way is for me to activate half a person's height. Then, the 5 of us will work together to stabilize it and give everyone time to pass." Apart from the 5 leaders, the Saintess, Gu Xing, and the Manor Lord's wife would also enter. There were 8 people in total. The people present did not hesitate much in this regard. The Manor Lord's only worry was the moon-worshipping sect leader. He said, "You have the weakest cultivation among us. If you can hold on, please let us know in advance so that we can be prepared." Otherwise, if anyone gets stuck in the middle of the seal, they will be destroyed. No wonder he was lukewarm toward the moon-worshipping sect leader. It turned out that the opening of the seal would make the moon-worshipping sect leader a burden. I understand. Suyu did not say much. The cabinet master of the Fengjian pavilion was also a little worried. He frowned and said, "Sect leader, why don't you postpone it? If the moon-worshipping sect leader could not hold on and cause the seal to shrink, he would be the one who would be hurt, not the others." The saintess said coldly, "Why? Everyone has signed the alliance of 5 factions. Why does the moon-worshipping sect have to be the last? Who knew if they would close the seal with evil intentions after they went in first? Postpone it then." Suyu patted her shoulder and said calmly, "Don't worry too much. 2 of us have already taken advantage of the situation. What's the harm of being a little behind?" The saintess rolled her eyes at him. He had to compromise in everything. "Let's do it this way," Suyu said. Everyone prepared for a while, then looked at each other and struck at the same time. In an instant, for majestic forces of desolation surged like a raging sea, tumbling endlessly. Among them, the most powerful was the Windcloud Heights Master. His power of desolation alone was equivalent to half of the total forces present. Next was the Cabinet Master of the Fengjian Pavilion, whose power of desolation was comparable to that of the Lord of Green Hell. Next was Master Bao Kuan, whose power of desolation was the weakest, only a tiny bit. After all, he was just a puppet. What was strong was his physique, not his desolation. Only Suyu did not emit any desolation from his body. The other 3 people looked at the moon-worshipping sect leader and Master Bao Kuan in astonishment. Their behavior was not quite right. However, the desolation was only a symbol of their realm. Their real abilities depended on their mastery of the rules. Creak. The Wind Cloud Heights Master was the first to strike. After the Jade Rui opened up a passage that was half opened by a person, he condensed a thick chain of rules in his palm and whipped it over. It propped up the passage that was about to be compressed and expanded it by a third. The Cabinet Master of the Fengjian Pavilion and the Green Underworld Manor Master struck at the same time. Their chain of rules was much thinner than the Wind Cloud Heights Masters, but with their combined strength, it was comparable to the Wind Cloud Heights Masters and expanded the passage by a third. Then it was Master Bao Kuan's turn. He did not use the rules, but laughed and said, "I have recently gained some insights in training my physique. Let me show you." At the stage of the divine warrior of heaven and earth, the most powerful thing should be the chain of rules, which could destroy heaven and earth at will. There were people who trained their physique alone, but it was extremely rare. The Wind Cloud Heights Master and the other 2 people looked surprised. He even trained his physique? The Cabinet Master of the Fengjian Pavilion bellowed, "It's better to use the rules. What if you ruin our plan by using your physique now?" Master Bao Kuan did not say anything. He rushed to the front of the seal, and a pair of metallic fists appeared in his wide sleeves. He brazenly propped up the passage, and with a creak it was opened by a third. In this way, the passage that was half a person's height became 2 people's height, which was enough for others to pass through. The Wind Cloud Heights Master and the others squinted their eyes, and a hint of vigilance appeared on their faces. With such a strong physique, coupled with the rules, wouldn't Master Bao Kuan's overall strength improve by leaps and bounds? Without the moon-worshipping sect master's help, the passage was completely open. The Manor Master said, "The 3 of you go first, we will follow behind." The Saint Maiden, Gu Xing, and the Manor Master's wife nodded and quickly passed through the passage. Then, the Manor Master took the lead and rushed over immediately. However, he was still maintaining the support of the chain of rules on the other end to ensure that the passage would not be compressed. However, the pressure on the Manor Master's face could already be seen. It was a little strenuous for him to hold on for such a short time. After all, this was a seal at the level of the 4 crowned divine warriors, and the four of them were working together to withstand the pressure. "Hurry up, this seal is no small matter, and we can't delay it for long," the manor master of the Fengyan manor shouted. The cabinet master of the Fengjian pavilion shouted and immediately flew over. He was also trying his best to hold on, and a hint of difficulty could be seen on his face. Then, it was the Green Hell Mansion master, followed by Master Bao Kuan. When only Su Yu was left, the whole passage was trembling and flickering, and the 3 chains were creaking, showing signs of being compressed. Master Bao Kuan was growling continuously, and the compressed passage continued to be suppressed. "Hurry up!" the manor master of the Fengyan manor shouted. "We can't hold on any longer." Su Yu nodded and instantly flew over to the passage. However, just as he was about to pass through the passage, the people inside exclaimed in unison, "Retreat quickly, we can't hold on any longer." The manor master of the Fengyan manor was the first to withdraw the chain of rules, which could no longer bear the burden. If he continued to hold on, his chain would be completely shattered, and the rules would be damaged. Once he withdrew, the cabinet master of the Fengyan manor and the Green Hell Mansion master naturally would not persist, and they also withdrew their chains. Only Master Bao Kuan held on for a moment, and he had no choice but to retreat. All of a sudden, the passage, which was as tall as a person, bounced back almost instantly and closed again. As for Su Yu, he had just crossed half of the passage, and he could neither retreat nor advance, so he was stuck in the middle. Seeing this, the saint maiden cried out in alarm, and her heart was filled with rage. As expected, the worst had happened. They couldn't hold on until the end. Coincidentally, the Baiwa sect master happened to be stuck in the middle, and he was about to be crushed into nothingness by the seal. Everyone watched the seal close, but they couldn't do anything about it. It was a pity that the Baiwa sect master would die so carelessly. However, the next moment they opened their eyes abruptly. The passage, which was about to close, was forcibly opened. As they fixed their eyes on it, they saw a lotus full of space energy, and its petals were blooming one by one. Every time it bloomed, the collapsed seal passage was propped up by an inch. When hundreds of petals were all blooming, the whole passage was propped up by a person's height. However, the Baiwa sect master was nowhere to be seen. "Where is he?" the Green Hell Mansion master asked in surprise. At this moment, even his breath had disappeared without a trace, and no one knew where he had gone. The cabinet master of the Fengyan manor stared at the lotus thoughtfully, and his eyes were filled with deep surprise. He didn't have time to prop up the passage, and he was crushed, right? The manor master of the Fengyan manor stared at the lotus, and he was even more surprised. The layers of blooming space flowers should be a sign of the advanced level of the law of space, right? The Baiwa sect master had such a terrible attainment in the law of space. Fortunately, he should be dead, otherwise he would be a big problem in the future. The advanced level of any of the 8 great profounds had infinite potential. It was good that he died. Crack, after a stalemate of 10 breaths, the seal suddenly shrank, and the space lotus was completely crushed into nothingness. The Baiwa sect master never appeared again, and his breath disappeared from the world. There was no doubt that he should be dead. The holy maiden's face was quite ugly. Hia was dead. She was the only one left. Wouldn't it be as difficult as climbing up to the sky to get all the star stones? The atmosphere suddenly became solemn and gloomy. The manor master of the Fengyan manor let out a long sigh. "Everyone, let's go. We can't let the Baiwa sect master die in vain." The others nodded one after another, and then entered the ancient tomb. The ancient tomb was not big. In the pitch-black stone chamber, there were 81 grooves, and in each groove, there was a bronze coffin that stood upright. Many of them had decayed, and some were brand new. Inside were the manor masters of the Fengyan manor. Chapter 1897. She didn't say it clearly, but everyone present understood. This place was extremely dangerous, and the invisible danger was right under their feet. If they took a wrong step, they would probably be devoured by the ancient tomb. However, their attention was more attracted by the offering table at the end of the stone room. On the offering table, there was a pattern, which was constantly absorbing the power from all directions and gathering it in the groove. And in the groove, it gathered into a pitch-black dust. The dust gathered together and condensed into powder, the powder condensed into gravel, and the gravel gathered into a stone the size of a dragon rock. Star stone. Everyone's face changed at the same time, and their eyes showed deep joy. There were 10 in total. 10 star stones. As long as you got 2 of them, you could go to other civilizations and return successfully. Everyone's eyes were blazing, and they were all eager to have a try. But no one took a step forward rashly. Everyone, this formation is the heavenly star 9 Yin and 9 Yang formation created by our ancestors. It can absorb the power from nothingness and condense it into star stones. It can also turn the absorbed power into its own attacking power. Its power is very terrible. If you take a wrong step, you will be doomed eternally. Everyone, follow me closely. Don't take a wrong step. The Master of Windcloud Heights said solemnly. He took the lead and stepped on a bluestone. The Pavilion Master of the Sealed Sword Pavilion followed him carefully. Then came the Mansion Master of the Green Nether Mansion, esteemed Bao Kuan, the Saintess, Gu Xing, and the Master's wife. All of them were absolute experts in the outside world, but in the small stone room, they were all very careful, as if they were walking on thin ice. Time passed little by little. It seemed that they had walked only a few hundred feet, but it seemed that they had walked for a month. Until they arrived at the offering table, the Master of Windcloud Heights wiped his sweat and smiled. Fortunately, there is no mistake. He moved his hands and feet casually, indicating that it was a safe area near the offering table. As long as it is within 3 feet of the offering table, there will be no problem. As the Master of Windcloud Heights said this, he stared at the star stone formed in the groove with a blazing look in his eyes. Seeing this, the rest of the people gathered around. They stared at the groove, but no one took action. Everyone, how should we distribute the star stones? The Master of Windcloud Heights looked around at everyone. A trace of cold light flashed in the eyes of the Pavilion Master of Windcloud Heights. He said lightly, "Since everyone is here, why don't we rob it with our strength?" As soon as these words came out, everyone immediately became wary of each other. Speak with your ability? Wouldn't they have to kill each other in a small area? The palace lord's eyes were filled with murderous intent as his mind spun rapidly. Gu Xing and the manor lord's wife retreated slightly, indicating that they would not participate in the fight and that they should not attack them. The Master of Windcloud Heights also pondered carefully, based on our own abilities? In terms of ability, no one present could compare to him. The stone chamber was silent. Everyone knew that as long as someone made the first move, everyone would start killing each other. Right at this moment, the reticent Lord Bao Kuan spoke abruptly, and he said indifferently, "Everyone, aren't we being too rash by fighting here? If you take a wrong step outside the range of 30 feet, you will die. Are you sure you want to take this risk for the star stones?" In fact, they all knew how dangerous it was to fight here. However, when the Pavilion Master of the Sealed Sword Pavilion said that it would depend on their own abilities, they naturally became nervous. I agree with honored Master Bao Kuan. If we want to fight for it with our own abilities, we have to find another place, the Lord of Green Hell immediately said. The Pavilion Master of the Sealed Sword Pavilion glanced at honored Master Bao Kuan, and a trace of displeasure appeared in his eyes. He said, "Then why don't you tell us how to distribute the star stones to satisfy everyone? Let me make it clear first, I want 3 star stones." As soon as he said this, the rest of the people immediately glared at him. Why? The Lord of Green Hell was the first to object. "If you want 3, then I want 3 too." The 2 of them asked for 6 star stones. The Master of Windcloud Heights stroked his beard and said, "Since both of you want 3, then there is no reason for me to ask for less." I also want 3. In the end, there was only 1 star stone left. The saint's eyes flashed. I want the last one. Now that the Lord of Moon-worshipping cult had fallen, she was alone, and it would be good if she could get 1 star stone. She was not qualified to compete with them for more. Gu Xing and the manor lord's wife were the people who entered this place, so they were not qualified to distribute the star stones. Honored Master Bao Kun clasped his hands behind his back and said, "Isn't this enough? Just enough for the distribution." The few people stared at Honored Master Bao Kun in surprise. Did he not want it? The Lord of Green Hell Mansion looked slightly relieved. If you sacrifice yourself and don't ask for the star stones, then I have nothing to say. A strange light flashed in the pavilion master's eyes, and he nodded. If that's the case, I have no objection. The master of Windcloud Heights nodded slightly. It seems that everyone has reached an agreement. Then, let's start collecting the star stones. He took out the Rui Jade and touched the seal on the groove. The seal immediately opened, and 10 star stones were revealed. The master of Windcloud Heights took out 3 star stones and put them in the storage space. Then, he moved away. The pavilion master of Windcloud Heights also took out 3 star stones. Then, the Lord of Green Hell Mansion also took out 3 star stones. Finally, the saint took out 1 star stone with a complicated expression. The 10 star stones were distributed, and everyone was happy. The Lord of Green Hell Mansion immediately said, "Since we have the star stones, let's leave as soon as possible. Master, please lead the way." The longer he stayed here, the more uneasy he felt. This place gave him an unusual sense of danger, and it was better to leave as soon as possible. The master of Windcloud Heights clasped his hands behind his back, and the corners of his mouth curled into a meaningful smile. "I should say, let me send you on your way." The meaning revealed in his words caused the expressions of everyone present to change abruptly. The Lord of Green Hell Mansion frowned. "Master, I don't understand what you're saying. What do you mean?" "Literally," the master of Windcloud Heights said indifferently. "Now that you have the star stones, you have no regrets, right? In this way, I have done my best for you." Whoosh! The pavilion master of Windcloud Sword Pavilion, the Lord of Green Hell Mansion, and the saint retreated to the edge of the 30-feet range, and their eyes were cold. The pavilion master of Windcloud Sword Pavilion said in a low voice, "Master, it's not a good time to joke. You'd better take us away as soon as possible. Otherwise, it'll be a misunderstanding, and we'll hurt you together." The Lord of Green Hell Mansion's face was gloomy, and he said nothing. He should have expected that the master of Windcloud Heights did not have good intentions when he opened the ancient tomb of Fengyun. How could he bear to give away 10 star stones? Star stones, without any hesitation, the Lord of Green Hell Mansion threw out the entire space storage device without any hesitation. However, it was too late. From his storage device, a towering black fog emerged and instantly enveloped him. With a scream, the Lord of Green Hell Mansion turned into a pool of blood. The pavilion master of Windcloud Sword Pavilion's expression changed dramatically, and he shouted in a low voice, "Master, how dare you!" His storage device also emitted endless black fog, which enveloped him on the spot and turned him into a pool of blood. The saint's face froze. Before she could do anything, she was also enveloped by a cloud of black fog and turned into a pool of blood. In the blink of an eye, the pavilion master of Windcloud Pavilion, the Lord of Green Hell Mansion, and the saint were all dead. Together with the Lord of Moon Worship sect, they were all dead. Among the 5 sects in the south, only the master of Windcloud Heights and Bao Kun Master were left. The master of Windcloud Heights glanced at Gu Xing, and the corners of his mouth curled up. He looked at Bao Kun Master and laughed. "Bao Kun, you're smart enough to see through the clues and not touch the star stones." There was no doubt that the killing move of the master of Windcloud Heights was not hidden on the way, but in the star stones themselves. They were too vigilant against the master of Windcloud Heights, and it was too difficult to plot against them on the way. The star stones were the best choice. Facing the treasures in their hands, their vigilance was the lowest. Bao Kun Master said coldly, "Those star stones are fake, right? The real 10 star stones have already been taken away by you, haven't they? In the past 5 days, you must have come to the ancient tomb and taken the star stones, haven't you?" The Master of Windcloud Heights looked at Bao Kun Master and laughed. "Why should the things of my Windcloud Heights be handed over to outsiders like you? As you said, I've been here several times in the past 5 days to set up a trap to kill all of you, and now I've basically succeeded." Bao Kun Master said, "So, the huge seal at the entrance is actually prepared to kill someone?" "Yes." The Master of Windcloud Heights deeply curled up the corners of his mouth and stepped toward Bao Kun Master. If not, how could the Lord of Moon Worship sect die so easily? Sure enough, there was a reason why he suddenly stopped when the Lord of Moon Worship sect passed through the passage. In order to kill a person, you didn't hesitate to break the seal and cause damage to him? Bao Kun Master asked sarcastically. It was really strange that he didn't hesitate to destroy the ancient tomb of his ancestors. However, unexpectedly, the Master of Windcloud Heights snorted. "I don't have the ability to break the seal. The damage happened suddenly in the past 2 years, and it should be because the seal has been in disorder for a long time. He didn't know when the seal was broken and who destroyed it. That's it, Bao Kun. You are no match for me, and it's not difficult to kill you." Bao Kun Master was not afraid and said calmly, "You can have a try." "Really? Then have a try." The Master of Windcloud Heights' face turned cold, and his figure flashed. However, he didn't rush toward Bao Kun Master, but changed his direction at the last minute, and suddenly appeared in front of the Lady of Windcloud Heights. He grabbed her throat. "Ha ha, lady, it's safer to send you to hell first." The countenance of the Lady of Windcloud Heights changed, and she said with difficulty, "My husband, what are you saying?" "I don't understand," the Master of Windcloud Heights sneered, and took out the 3 star stones he got, and said with a sneer, "You must be very curious why I'm fine after taking 3 fake star stones, right?" A trace of regret and killing intent appeared on his face. "I love you so much, but you want to kill me. My husband, you're confused. The 3 star stones you got are real, and they were arranged by you. You got the 3 real star stones first, so you'll be fine." The killing intent of the Master of Windcloud Heights deepened. "Then tell me first, why did you steal my jade Rui, sneak in here, and replace the 3 star stones with fake ones after I arranged it? You want to kill me and the others, right?" Unfortunately, the Master of Windcloud Heights found out everything and rearranged it. Instantly, the face of the Lady of Windcloud Heights turned pale. The Master of Windcloud Heights' face showed a ferocious expression. "I hate betrayal the most. Die." He exerted strength in his 5 fingers, and was about to pinch him to death. Then, a cloud of blood mist suddenly appeared where the Master of Green Hell Mansion was, and the Master of Green Hell Mansion appeared with a pale face. He was holding a small porcelain doll in his hand, and its whole body was full of cracks. As soon as it appeared, it shattered with a bang. The Master of Windcloud Heights' face changed slightly. Substitution. The Master of Green Hell Mansion's eyes were full of hatred and he sneered, "It's not that easy to kill me." Chapter 1898. At the same time, there was a cracking sound, as if a mirror was broken. A crack appeared in the nearby space. As the cracks became more and more dense, it finally shattered. As a trace of the force of nothingness leaked out, a figure emerged from the broken space. The Pavilion Master of Sealed Sword Pavilion. The sword on his back was broken into 7 or 8 pieces, severely damaged. His robe was also torn, and he looked quite embarrassed. "Master of Windcloud Heights, how dare you plot against me?" The Pavilion Master of Sealed Sword Pavilion scolded angrily. "I trusted you and supported you to be the leader." He also had a way to save his life. It seemed that he had traveled through space and returned to this place at the critical moment. The Master of Windcloud Heights squinted his eyes. 2 of the 3 people were still alive, which was really tricky. But both of them were injured and their strength was not at its peak, so it was not difficult to kill them. Esteemed Bao Kun, let's join hands and kill the Windcloud Heights master. Then, we'll announce to the world that he's a wolf in sheep's clothing. The pavilion master of the Sealed Sword Pavilion shouted and called esteemed Bao Kun over. The mansion master of Green Hell Mansion took a deep breath. At this moment, he could not care so much. He had to kill him first, snatch the Rui Jade, open the seal, and leave this place. However, Master Bao Kun stood there motionlessly. After a while, he nodded and shook his head gently. We can join hands to kill the master of Windcloud Heights, but the premise is that the pavilion master of Sealed Sword Pavilion will stop acting. The mansion master of Green Hell Mansion rolled his eyes and took a few steps back without hesitation. At the same time, he released a defensive divine skill in front of him. Almost at this moment, the 3 layers of defense in front of him were instantly broken, and only a small part was still working. Looking carefully, the pavilion master of Sealed Sword Pavilion had another long sword in his hand, and he stabbed it back. If he had reacted 1 step slower and did not protect himself in time, he would have been stabbed by the sword. Thinking of this, he was shocked and resentful. He stared at the pavilion master of Sealed Sword Pavilion and said in a low voice, "Are you in cahoots with the master of Windcloud Heights?" The pavilion master of Sealed Sword Pavilion stared at Master Bao Kun with a cold face. "I should have killed you first at the seal." Without his reminder, the mansion master of Green Hell Mansion could not have easily escaped his sudden sneak attack. Master Bao Kun said unhurriedly, "It's because you were too overboard in the beginning, it's hard for me not to suspect you." He was the one who allowed the White Moon cult leader to pass through the seal in the end. He was also the one who suggested that everyone should compete with their own strength at the sacrificial table. He was also the one who created the conflict between the two sides. Now that the palace master of Green Hell Mansion had just barely escaped with his life, he immediately appeared. Who would believe that he was not suspicious? Bao Kun, we're the only ones left now. Show us all your trump cards and don't hold anything back, the palace master of Green Hell Mansion said. Lord Bao Kun nodded lightly, and then he raised his hand and gestured. Another mysterious person that was completely enveloped in a black robe appeared. There were no fluctuations of soul aura coming from his body, only faint traces of pressure. The palace master of Green Nether Mansion was overjoyed. Could this be the puppet of the 3-Crown Emperor? If that was the case, then it would be too shocking. At most, they had only heard of the appearance of a double-crown emperor puppet in a foreign civilization. They had never heard of a triple crown. Esteemed Bao Kun said indifferently, "Let's go all out." The palace master of Green Hell Mansion nodded deeply. He clenched his fists, and dense chains of laws wrapped around his wrists. Those were all the rules of the palace master of Green Hell Mansion. At this moment, he used all of them, ready to fight to the death. At this moment, it was the master of Windcloud Heights and the pavilion master of Sealed Sword Pavilion's turn to look serious. Among the 3-Crown Emperors, they were slightly stronger, but there were only 2 of them. The master of Windcloud Heights' expression was gloomy. He stared deeply at Lord Bao Kun and said hatefully, "You're really a troublemaker." Even if he could kill all of them in the ancient tomb today, he would have to pay a very heavy price. Then should I be indifferent to being killed by you? Lord Bao Kun did not care and said indifferently, "Do it." The 3 of them attacked first, and they attacked the 2 of them at the same time. The master of Windcloud Heights and the pavilion master of Sealed Sword Pavilion snorted coldly and counterattacked. Other than Lord Bao Kun and the puppet who used their physiques, the other 3 of them chose to fight with the chains of laws. However, the sound of clashing could be heard continuously. Lord Bao Kun relied on his powerful physique to resist the attacks of the pavilion master of Sealed Sword Pavilion's rules. Although the pavilion master of Sealed Sword Pavilion had the upper hand, he would be ambushed by another puppet from time to time, so he had to disperse his attacks. As such, he was at a disadvantage, and he was extremely angry from being bombarded by the two tyrannical puppets. Manor Master, help me get rid of one of the puppets. Their physiques are too strong. It's not good for me to fight them at close range, the Pavilion Master of Sealed Sword Pavilion said angrily. With the chains of laws, he could attack the puppets from a distance, and the puppets could do nothing to him. However, everyone was within a range of 3 zhang. He was not a match for the two puppets at close range. He was bombarded several times until he spat out blood. However, how could the Master of Windcloud Heights let go? The Palace Master of Green Hell Mansion attacked without fear of death. If he was slightly distracted, he would suffer a great loss. There's no other way. I can only close the Heavenly Star 9 Yin and 9 Yang Great Formation. The Master of Windcloud Heights took out a jade scepter and pointed it at the pattern on the offering table behind him. With a rumbling sound, the formation that gathered in all directions stopped. The Pavilion Master of Sealed Sword Pavilion finally did not have to be besieged by the two puppets at close range. He suddenly jumped to the center of the stone room. As expected, there was no longer any danger there. You two be stars. The Pavilion Master of Sealed Sword Pavilion was unusually embarrassed. He was really aggrieved. At this moment, he pulled away from them and attacked from a distance with the chains of laws. The two puppets could no longer get close to him so easily. Just like that, both sides fell into a stalemate. However, it would still take a long time to determine the winner. The Manor Master's wife, who luckily escaped, took the opportunity to hide far away. She stared at the Manor Master with deep hatred in her eyes. The hatred was so deep that it was unforgettable. It was not as if she simply wanted to stay with the moon-worshipping Hierophant for a long time. Gu Xing also quietly came to a distance away and stood in front of a bronze coffin. At this moment, there was no Heavenly Star 9 Yang and 9 Yin Great Formation. The restriction on the surface of the bronze coffin slowly dissipated. Gu Xing's eyes flashed. He pressed his palm on the bronze coffin's lid and forcefully pulled it open. Although the Master of Windcloud Heights and the others noticed Gu Xing's unusual behavior, they had no time to pay attention to him. Crack, with a muffled sound, the bronze coffin was opened. However, what was displayed inside was not the previous Manor Masters of Windcloud Heights, but a dark moon clansman with a dark face. He held a sinister-looking longsword in his hand. Veins wrapped around his body, and there was a beating heart at the center of the sword hilt. At the same time, as the bronze coffin opened, an unprecedented murderous aura erupted. The expressions of everyone who was fighting changed. They suddenly looked towards the bronze coffin. When they saw the sinister-looking sword, they were pleasantly surprised. Emperor Killing Sword! The Alliance of the Five Sects was searching for this sword, but it was hidden right under their noses. If Gu Xing had not opened the bronze coffin, they probably would not have known that the Emperor Killing Sword was here. Gu Xing sighed softly. I finally found you. He reached out and grabbed the Emperor Killing Sword. The Emperor Killing Sword seemed to sense him and trembled in excitement. Dozens of meridians were pulled out of the Dark Moon clansman's palm. They prepared to leave him and be controlled by Gu Xing. The Master of Windcloud Heights, the Palace Master of Green Nether Mansion, and the Pavilion Master of Sealed Sword Pavilion were all shocked. They gave up fighting and rushed over. What was more important than the Emperor Killing Sword? But they were very far away, and Gu Xing came prepared. He could grab the Emperor Killing Sword with just a finger's distance. How difficult would it be to stop him? Yet, just as Gu Xing sighed softly, a soft sigh came from his shoulder. What a surprise! So your goal in sneaking into Windcloud Heights is the Emperor Killing Sword. Who was it? Gu Xing's pupils shrank, but his hand reached for the Emperor Killing Sword even faster. Crack! At this moment, a spatial barrier appeared between his finger and the Emperor Killing Sword. When his finger touched it, it was isolated by space. Then, the spatial barrier shot out countless sharp spatial spikes that swept towards him. Gu Xing's expression changed. He could only give up on the emperor-killing sword and quickly retreat. Under his shocked gaze, a speck of dust between him and the bronze coffin folded into a figure. Seeing the figure, Gu Xing was shocked. Sect Master Bai Yu. Sect Master Bai Yu, who was the first to die, had been hiding on his shoulder and only attacked now. Sect Master Bai Yu placed his hands behind his back and sized him up. You know the whereabouts of the scabbard and know that the emperor-killing sword is hidden here. You even dare to touch it with your hand. I am very curious. Who are you? Of course, he did not die in the passageway. He was already on guard against the manor lord. How could he fall for it so easily? The instant the passageway was compressed, he used spatial folding and turned into a speck of dust that landed on Gu Xing's shoulder. He secretly watched Gu Xing's every move and controlled the situation through exalted Bao Kuan. From the looks of it, the situation was slightly out of control. The emperor-killing sword was actually hidden here. No wonder the ancient tomb's seal was damaged. It was probably damaged when the emperor-killing sword barged in. Back then, it had been injured by the White Sun Divine Stone and had been hiding here to recuperate with the help of the heavenly astral 9 suns and 9 yin array. At this moment, he stared at Gu Xing. He had already activated Truth Listener to hear what Gu Xing was thinking. Who is Sect Master Bai Yu? How is it possible for him to grasp spatial laws? Didn't I hear that he is the weakest Sect Master Bai Yu? But why does he give off the most unfathomable feeling? It seems like I have been targeted by him since the beginning. Sect Master Bai Yu said calmly, I will ask you again. Who are you? Gu Xing's heart skipped a beat and he panicked. It's over. I'm afraid I'm going to fall into Sect Master Bai Yu's hands. Junior sister is still outside. What should I do? She is still waiting for me. I can't just wait for death, junior sister? The person who had transmitted his memories to him? However, after hearing his last thoughts, Su Yu immediately became vigilant. Crack! Almost at this moment, the dark-skinned youth in the bronze coffin suddenly moved. The blood threads that had been extracted from his body merged back into his body, and he controlled them to slash at Su Yu's back. Su Yu was prepared and dodged in time. The attack of the emperor-killing sword, no matter how weak it was, should not be underestimated. Moreover, this attack was not weak at all. It had surpassed the power of the great deacon of clear sky in the past. This attack had almost surpassed the level of a 3-crown emperor and reached the level of a 4-crown emperor. Su Yu turned his head to look in horror, and his face changed drastically. He knew the dark-skinned youth controlled by the emperor-killing sword. He was just a bronze overlord. Chapter 1899. The skeleton had not completely decayed, but judging from the color of the bones, it should be the corpse of the Fengyun Manor Master, who had been buried here 30 million years ago. Half of the emperor-killing sword was controlling the dark-skinned youth, while the other half was controlling the skeleton. Su Yu's scalp went numb. That was the corpse of a 3-crown emperor. Controlled by the emperor-killing sword, it could exert a terrifying power close to that of a 4-crown emperor. He dodged the sword, but the pavilion master of the sealed sword pavilion, who had just arrived, was not so lucky. He was hit by the sword chi. In an instant, his whole body turned black, emitting a thick aura of death. With Su Yu's soul eyes, he saw with his own eyes that his soul had been destroyed by a pitch-black murderous aura. He could not be more dead. A magnificent 3-crown emperor was killed by a single sword just like that. The Fengyun Manor Master and the Qingming Manor Master, who had just arrived, were shocked, retreating frantically. Gu Xing, on the other hand, was slightly relieved. He shouted, "Ignore them. Let's leave this place first." The emperor-killing sword obeyed someone's control, striking toward the seal. The seal, which required them to work together to open, was cut open by a sword that was as tall as 2 people. Gu Xing took advantage of the opportunity to escape. The emperor-killing sword's murderous intent did not diminish. It stared at Su Yu as if it recognized him. It wanted to slash at him from afar. Su Yu's expression turned cold. He immediately summoned Master Bao Kun and the puppet to fly over to block the attack. At the same time, he secretly activated the dragon-shaped necklace on his neck. But at that moment there was a ripple in the sky above the emperor-killing sword. The saint lady, who should have been dead, appeared without warning. She condensed a long knife made of the power of faith in her palm and slashed down from the sky. It accurately and abruptly slashed at the blood line connecting the emperor-killing sword and the skeleton. Suddenly, the blood line was split into two. The connection between the emperor-killing sword and the skeleton was immediately severed. The power of the sword he had unleashed towards Su Yu was immediately weakened, only equivalent to the power of a silver overlord. Su Yu heaved a sigh of relief, waving his sleeves to dismiss it. The Emperor-Killer sword saw that the situation was not good, so it controlled the tanned youth to turn around and flee out of the seal. Humph! Su Yu did not give chase. Even if he did, he would not be able to do anything. He took out a huge bow that was as tall as a person and pulled the bowstring back 6 inches. Now that he was half a step away from becoming a martial emperor, his physical strength was much greater than before. He easily pulled back 6 inches, knocked the arrow, and shot it out in an instant. Ding! What followed was a whimper of the sword. It had been severely injured by the Tiani bow. The emperor-killing sword was injured, so it borrowed the force to tear through the sky and quickly escape. In the blink of an eye, its aura disappeared without a trace. Its escape made everyone in the house heave a sigh of relief. Facing the terror of this sword, no one had any confidence. In the midst of everyone's confusion, the palace lord of Green Nether Mansion suddenly let out a furious roar, followed by a blood-curdling scream. A jade rui pierced through his abdomen from the front to the back. It was the master of Windcloud Heights who reacted first and launched a sneak attack on the mansion master of Green Nether Mansion. The rui jade was an heirloom of the Windcloud Villa. It contained the power of the heavenly star 9 Yin and 9 Yang, and was extremely powerful. It unexpectedly pierced through the body of the mansion master of Green Nether Mansion. The power of the formation gushed into his body like a flood. It shattered the mansion master of Green Nether Mansion from the inside out, including his soul. Hee. The master of Windcloud Heights held the Rui Jade, which was dripping with blood, and stared coldly at the people present. Master Bao Kun, the puppet, the Baiwa sect master, the saint, and the manor master's wife. Without the mansion master of Green Nether Mansion, who was a middle-stage 3-crown martial emperor, they were no match for him. Killing them was extremely easy. Even the heavens are helping me. Now that I have killed the cabinet master of the Fengjian Pavilion, I have saved 10 star stones, and I have also killed the mansion master of Green Nether Mansion. The master of Windcloud Heights laughed heartily. It turned out that he had an agreement with the cabinet master of the Fengjian Pavilion. The master of Windcloud Heights had given him 10 star stones as a reward for helping the master of Windcloud Heights kill the leaders of the other 3 factions and become the next alliance master. Now that he was dead, and the people present were weak, killing them was extremely easy. Sect Master, how is your relationship with Master Bao Kun? The manor master's wife, who was watching coldly from the side, suddenly asked. Su Yu looked at her and said, "Very good. He can be trusted." "I can see that." The manor master's wife nodded. "If that is the case, then there is no need to use the manor master to kill everyone. I can do it now." "Oh?" Su Yu was extremely surprised. The manor master's wife's plan to poison the manor master with the fake star stones had obviously been discovered. Did she still have a backup plan? The manor master's wife laughed coldly. "Haha, madam. You are still pretending to be mysterious even at death's door. If you really had the ability to deal with me, you would not have waited until now." The manor master's wife shook her head pitifully. "You are wrong. I waited until now to let you kill the mansion master of Green Nether Mansion and the cabinet master of the Fengjian Pavilion. Do you think that if I wanted to poison you, you would easily discover my plan? After all, you are a high and mighty three-crown martial emperor, and I am just a weak woman. Why would I act rashly? The fake star stones were just a smokescreen to let you come to the Fengyun ancient tomb. The manor master's eyes narrowed, and he said in a low voice, Madam, you do not have to scare me. With your abilities, what threat can you pose to me? Even though he said that, he was still looking left and right, extremely vigilant. The manor master's wife said calmly, My abilities are naturally not worth mentioning. However, when you schemed to seize the many legacies of the Fengyun manor, there was only one legacy that you did not master. She gently cut her wrist with her finger, and a drop of divine blood fell onto the ground of the ancient tomb. Her divine blood contained extremely dense yin and yang energy, and after it seeped into the ground, the heavenly star 9 yin and 9 yang great formation that had been shut down was activated again. Within a 30-foot radius around her, the ground was dark, and the formation was not activated. It covered Suyu, esteemed Bao Kuan, the puppet, and the Saint Lady. The other places, apart from the offering table, were all activated. The place where the manor master was standing was the place where the formation was activated. Moreover, it was a dangerous area. Sizzle! Thick smoke immediately appeared beneath the manor master's feet, and balls of extremely powerful flames were spat out. The flames were powerful enough to harm the three-crown martial emperor. The manor master cried out in pain, and wanted to jump to the safety of the green stone slab. However, the heavenly star 9 yin and 9 yang great formation coincided with the 64 transformations of the Big Dipper, and a simple movement could trigger a transformation. The manor master stepped towards the safety of the green stone slab, and triggered the formation. The green stone slab, which was supposed to be safe, became a murderous area. All of a sudden, an extremely powerful thunderbolt descended, and he was blown away. Now, even the manor master could not tell which of the green stone slabs were safe and which were dangerous. Just like that, he tried dozens of times to break out of the encirclement, but in the end, he did not succeed. He was continuously hit by the three-crown martial emperor's attacks dozens of times. No matter how strong he was, he could not be more powerful than the attacks of the enormous formation. Finally, with a miserable shriek, he was blasted into a bloody mess. His soul was extremely weak, and he could no longer put up any effective resistance. This was the power of the Great Formation. If he took a wrong step, he would be continuously attacked until he collapsed completely. The manor master's wife walked over, and wherever she passed, the originally dangerous areas were all safe. It was as if the entire formation obeyed her orders. Standing in front of the manor master, her eyes were filled with hatred, and a deep murderous intent surged in her eyes. Lu Wuming, you must be very curious why my blood can activate the Great Formation, and why I can control the Great Formation without relying on the Jade Rui, right? Lu Wuming forced his eyes open, and they were filled with weakness and confusion. The manor master's wife's lips curled into a cold smile, and she said with pity, You never knew my real surname, right? My surname is Sima, and my father is Sima Yen. Lu Wuming's eyes opened wide, and he stared at the woman in front of him in disbelief. Sima Yen was the real name of the manor master of Wind Cloud Villa. But he should be dead. I really want to kill you every day and night. However, I know that if you die, Wind Cloud Villa will be completely finished. So, I will let you live, but you will live like a puppet. She took out a crystal-shaped spiritual worm and said, This is the soul-controlling worm that I spent my entire life to obtain. With it, you will lose your sense of self, and from then on, you will only listen to me. She stuffed the spiritual worm into Lu Wuming's mouth, and let it burrow into his divine crystal of soul. Not long after, Lu Wuming stood up expressionlessly, grabbed the top of his head, and peeled off a layer of skin. His appearance was actually fake. Inside was a being with dark skin. The Dark Moon Clan. Everyone knew that Wind Cloud Villa was a foreign force, and every generation of Manor Master was a direct descendant. How could the Dark Moon clan be the Manor Master? Without a doubt, he was a fake Manor Master. Su Yu and the Saint Maiden were secretly shocked. The world-famous Manor Master of Wind Cloud Villa was actually the Dark Moon clan. When did the real Manor Master die? And who was the Manor Master's wife? "Greetings, Master," Lu Wu Ming said respectfully, and there was not a shred of self-conceit in his eyes. While they were shocked and confused, the Manor Master's wife wiped the divine blood on her wrist and said calmly, "Let's go." With a wave of her hand, she opened the seal without the use of the jade scepter. Then, she led everyone out of the ancient tomb safely and returned to the Wind Cloud Villa in the sky from the underground meteorite. "All of you can leave first. I have something to say to the Baiwa sect master alone." The charming look of the Manor Master's wife was gone, replaced by coldness and majesty. She had Lu Wu Ming, the puppet, and no one present could rival her. The Saint Maiden looked at the Baiwa sect master worriedly, and retreated with Lord Bao Kun and the puppet. Su Yu had mixed feelings. He said leisurely, "Should I call you Manor Master's wife or Miss Sima?" What she said just now was very clear. She was Sima Yan's daughter. In other words, she was the eldest daughter of the Wind Cloud Villa. "My name is Sima Biyun." Probably no one remembers this name anymore. Sima Biyun turned around and stared at the Baiwa sect master with a complicated look. "Then, can you tell me your name too?" Su Yu said. "Don't you know my name? Little Ying?" Sima Biyun smiled and looked at Su Yu deeply. "The Baiwa sect master has never called me Little Ying. He only calls me Yuner." Su Yu narrowed his eyes and said calmly, "Oh? So, I gave myself away the first time we met?" A faint murderous look appeared in Su Yu's eyes. This woman was really good at acting. Chapter 1900. He thought he had successfully deceived her. But she had known from the start that Su Yu was the fake Baiwa sect leader. He still had to use his identity as the Baiwa sect leader to prevent this woman from exposing his identity. "You want to kill me? Are you sure you can defeat Lu Wuming?" Sima Biyun asked with a faint smile. Su Yu said calmly, "If you had Lu Wuming's strength, it would be difficult to kill you. But if you are just a puppet, I have my ways." Suddenly, Su Yu's eyes flashed with two sharp soul thorns, shooting into her eyes. In an instant, Sima Biyun's eyes lost consciousness. Seizing the opportunity, Su Yu stabbed his sword at her vitals. Until now, Lu Wuming had not done anything. When Sima Biyun woke up, a sword was already at her forehead. The powerful sword energy could kill her in an instant. A look of shock and apprehension appeared on his handsome face. Clang! However, Su Yu retracted his sword and said coldly, "As you can see, it is very easy to kill you." Sima Biyun took a deep breath and stared at Su Yu. After calming down, she said, "But you did not kill me." She looked at Su Yu curiously, her thoughts racing. "My sword does not kill innocent people," Su Yu said indifferently. Su Yu said indifferently. He looked at Sima Biyun and said, "Since you've discovered that I'm a fake Baiwa sect leader, you've never exposed me or used the power of the formation to kill me. I think you want to cooperate with me, don't you?" Sima Biyun was slightly surprised. At Su Yu's level, many creatures should have died at his hands. Not killing innocent people? No matter how one listened to it, it sounded like a high-sounding boast. However, he was indeed very smart. "Yes, I hoped you could help me. That is why I did not harm you even though I knew you were fake," Sima Biyun said. "Originally, I hoped that the real Baiwa sect leader would help me. Now that you have replaced him, you must be stronger than him." She was not stronger, but she was indeed better at controlling the situation. "Well, tell me, what do you want me to help you with?" Su Yu said. Sima Biyun's eyes flashed coldly. "Destroy the holy mountain and kill the king of darkness." Su Yu raised his eyebrows, his heart trembling violently. Kill the king of darkness? The peak existence of the Four-Crown Emperor? Was she crazy? She dared to oppose the king of darkness. I can't believe that the Baiwa sect leader would be so stupid as to agree to cooperate with you. Suyu shook his head slightly. You are seeking death. Sima Biyun said faintly, Sect Master Baiyu isn't an idiot. Since he dared to agree, there must be a reason. Do you know why our Wind Cloud Villa is able to stand tall until now? Sima Biyun asked. Suyu had thought about this problem before. Even if the first master of the Dark Star Civilization had established himself as a four-crown ruler, his descendants did not have the strength of a four-crown ruler. How did the guardian god of the Dark Star Civilization, the Dark King, tolerate them until now? If he was the king of King, he would have killed the Yuhad immediately. He would have killed him the mountain the first he killed. That's because the celestial star 9 Yin and 9 Yang Great Formation, left by our ancestors, was prepared to guard against the King of Darkness. If he dares to set foot in the Wind Cloud Villa, the celestial star 9 Yin and 9 Yang Great Formation will be fully activated and kill the Four-Crown Emperor. Su Yu's eyelids twitched. Was the formation that powerful? The power of the Four-Crown Emperor was undeniable. He did not believe that a formation left behind by a Four-Crown Emperor would have such destructive power. However, the King of Darkness did not dare to step into the Gale Cloud Villa. How do you plan to kill him? He is not stupid. He will not come to the formation, Suyu said. Sima Biyun smiled crazily. That is easy to say. If he does not come to the formation, we will cover the entire Dark Star Civilization and kill everyone except us, including the King of Darkness. Suyu frowned deeply. Could it be that you really think that our ancestors paid such a huge price just to create a few star stones? Sima Biyun shook her head. You underestimate the ancestors' understanding of the Great Yin-Yang Formation. The formation has been absorbing energy for hundreds of millions of years. Only 1% of the energy was used to condense the star stones. The remaining 99% of the energy is hidden in the formation. As long as this energy is used, killing the King of Darkness will be a piece of cake. Sima Biyun was very confident. It had been absorbing energy for 100 million years. If most of it was left behind, it would have unimaginable power. Then what do you lack? Your blood can directly activate the formation. It is even more powerful than the Jade Rui. Why don't you do it directly? Suyu asked. Because there is one thing missing to activate the formation, Sima Biyun said. Suyu's eyes flashed, but he did not ask. This involved the core secret of the Gale Cloud Villa. If she was not willing to tell him, there was no point in asking. That is the formation stone that the ancestor brought from the outside world. It has incredible power. It is also the formation eye of the heavenly star 9 Yin and 9 Yang Great Formation. If you find it, you will be able to unleash the true power of the formation, Sima Biyun said. She did not mind telling him all the information. Where is the formation stone? Suyu asked. Did your ancestor not pass it on? Haha, it was lost long ago. Otherwise, the villa would not have fallen to this day. Sima Biyun sighed. Not long after the heavenly star 9 Yin and 9 Yang Great Formation was built, the King of Darkness sensed the threat of the formation and came to fight with the ancestor. The two of them fought from the Dark Star Civilization to the outside world and back again. Later, the King of Darkness returned to the Sacred Mountain, but our ancestor never returned. So the formation stone must have fallen into the hands of the King of Darkness. The strength of the King of Darkness was not to be underestimated. At first, it was rumored that the King of Darkness had personally suppressed a four-crown emperor from the outside world who had come to cause trouble under the Sacred Mountain. Unexpectedly, even the first master of the Gale Cloud Villa had died at the hands of the King of Darkness. Do you want me to help you take back the formation stone from the Sacred Mountain? That is too difficult. Suyu shook his head slightly. Fighting with a four-crown emperor for the formation stone was really a death sentence. Sima Biyun said, Don't you want to take the risk? If you succeed, the whole Dark Star civilization will be yours from now on. Unfortunately, Suyu was not tempted. He stood up slowly. Compared to power, my life is more important. Then you don't want to go to a 5-star civilization? Sima Biyun threw out another piece of important news. 5-star civilization? That was an extremely distant existence. According to Su Yu's understanding of the Great Beginning Realm, it would take at least 10 years for the nearest 5-star civilization to fly slowly by meteorite. Even if they used the Star Stone, they would have to spend no less than 10 Star Stones, and with the help of enormous power, they could only be transported to a 5-star civilization. The strength of a 5-star civilization was far beyond that of a 4-star civilization. A 5-star civilization could rule over thousands of 4-star civilizations. The range of influence could be said to be boundless. As a creature of a 4-star civilization, if he could enter a 5-star civilization, he would be more than happy to do so. To tell you the truth, my ancestor came from a 5-star civilization, the Tai Chi civilization. There is a star map of that civilization in the villa, and I still have the 10 star stones condensed this time. Once you help me get the formation stone, I will send you to the Tai Chi civilization immediately. This was the reason why the Baiwa sect master was willing to cooperate with Sima Biyun. The speaker did not mean it, but the listener did. The Tai Chi civilization, wasn't that the civilization where Huang Fu Liang came from? Moreover, he was a disciple of the founding force of the Tai Chi civilization, the Tai Chi faction. The ancestor of the Wind Cloud Villa was from the Tai Chi faction. It was a little unbelievable. With all due respect, even the King of Darkness does not have the ability to send a person to a 5-star civilization. Only the Wind Cloud Villa has the resources to do so, Sima Biyun said further. Suyu was deep in thought. His ambition was never the Dark Star civilization, but a deeper and more distant civilization, the pinnacle of the martial path. He would not stay in the Dark Star civilization forever, and he would choose to leave sooner or later. His ears twitched, trying to find out what she was thinking. After a moment, he fell silent. This woman was not lying. She wanted to go to a 5-star civilization, and the King of Darkness could not do anything about it. He could only choose to cross the void by meteorite. Not to mention the dangers along the way, what was the probability of crossing thousands of 4-star civilizations alive to reach a 5-star civilization? The loss of 10 years alone was not worth the gain. His eyes flickered slightly, and he said, I can only agree to give it a try. It would be best if I can get the formation stone, but if I can't, don't blame me for not trying hard enough. Sima Biyun was delighted. I know it is difficult to get the formation stone, but you can try. If there is anything you need help with, please don't hesitate to ask. Suyu nodded his head. Then how should I address you? Baiwa sect leader. Then, do you still need me to continue to be your mistress? To be honest, you are much better than the Baiwa sect leader. Sima Biyun said with a faint smile. No need, Suyu refused without hesitation. It was better to stay away from a woman who could put on a good show. Suyu stared at Lu Wuming and said, The reason you are so eager to kill the King of Darkness is because he killed your father? There would always be a commotion when killing someone. A descendant who had been separated by hundreds of millions of years would most likely not make an enemy of a 4-crowned emperor because of the hatred of his ancestors. A trace of sadness and hatred flashed across Sima Biyun's face. Yes, 10 million years ago, when my father was away from the villa, the King of Darkness personally killed my father and had his disciple, Lu Wuming, disguise himself as my father. Then, over hundreds of years, he used all sorts of methods to kill many of his people. Only I was still young and was taken away by my mother, who sensed something was wrong. I fled to the north and hid my identity. When I grew up, I tried my best to sneak into the Wind Cloud Villa and became his wife. At this point, she shed bitter tears. But because of this, she had the opportunity to get rid of Lu Wuming. Su Yu sighed inwardly. The two of them continued to discuss for half a day. The content of the agreement was that Sima Biyun would control Lu Wuming and continue to disguise himself as the master of the Wind Cloud Villa. He would control the alliance of 5 factions and give orders as the alliance master, obeying Su Yu's orders. Chapter 1901. In exchange, Su Yu would head to the Holy Mountain to obtain the formation stones. After they had come to an agreement, Su Yu returned to his room. After he thought for a moment, he took out the 2 items that Sima Biyun had given him. It was also a black stone, a star stone. The other 9 were in her hands. Once the King of Darkness was eliminated, she would give them to Su Yu. It was also a token with the words, Qing Ming carved on it. This was the identity token of the Palace Master of Green Nether Mansion. As Su Yu waved his hand, Lord Bao Kun and another puppet appeared. He threw out a set of extremely black robes and covered the puppet's body. At the same time, he hung the Qing Ming token on his body. Then, he separated a portion of his soul and sent it into the puppet. Slowly fuse with the puppet for a year, Su Yu said calmly. Yes. The Palace Lord of Green Nether Mansion nodded blankly. As a result, out of the 5 sects in the south, he alone controlled 3 of them: Moon-worshipping cult, Dustless Moon sect, and Green Netherworld Manor. Moreover, with Sima Biyun's assistance, it could be said that all of the southern influences were under Su Yu's control. With such a vast force, finding the Emperor-killing sword would be much easier. 2 days later, there was news from the Wind Cloud Villa. The Emperor-killing sword that had escaped was injured, and it went north, disappearing without a trace. On the other hand, Gu Xing, the disciple of the Mansion Master of Green Nether Mansion, had fled from the territory of Gale Cloud Villa that very night. Su Yu heaved a sigh of relief. What he was most worried about was that disciple named Gu Xing obtaining the Emperor-killing sword. Since they had separated, there was still a chance. Send my orders to the 5 factions. Put a bounty on Gu Xing's head, Su Yu ordered. Sima Biyun nodded and passed down the order through Lu Wuming, issuing a wanted order in the name of the 5-sect alliance. Very quickly, the news spread throughout the 5-sect alliance. Gu Xing's wanted posters were posted everywhere half a month later. Within the sealed sword pavilion, Zhan Wushuang and Han Xian were walking in the city. Senior brother, your name has basically resounded through half of the Darkstar civilization, Han Xian teased. She was not worried about his safety at all. Because the beings of the Darkstar civilization were afraid of sunlight, they all wore black robes and did not show their faces. The so-called wanted poster only had the body, but not the face. Finding the person was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Zhan Wushuang chuckled, but his heart was heavy. The monarch killer sword was startled and fled far away. It would not appear again for a short period of time. Senior brother, do you think the 5-sects alliance leaders are stupid? Han Xian curled her lips and said, he knows that the arrest warrant is useless, but he still wants you. Zhan Wushuang shook his head and said, he isn't putting a bounty on me. Instead, he's using this to send me a message. He won't let me obtain the Emperor Killer sword easily. Are you talking about the leaders of the 5 sects? No, I'm talking about sect leader Baiyue. Zhan Wushuang's eyes were very solemn. Han Xian was surprised. Him? That's right. Among the leaders of the 5 sects, the most unfathomable one is not the Villa Master of the Windcloud Villa, but the sect master of the Moon-worshipping sect. Zhan Wushuang recalled the scene in the stone room where the other party had destroyed his chance to obtain the Slaughter sword at the critical moment. His heart was abnormally heavy. The 4 leaders schemed against each other, but the one who schemed the most was the Reverence Moon sect leader. He had already seen through his plan of coming to the stone chamber. Moreover, he had long since taken precautions. Just this terrifying insight alone made Zhan Wushuang raise his guard to the maximum. The Reverence Moon sect leader, who is the weakest in the 5 sects alliance? Han Xian asked in confusion. Is he really that powerful? Zhan Wushuang nodded slowly, looking toward the northern horizon. I have a feeling that the biggest obstacle to me obtaining the Emperor Killer Sword might be him. At that moment, somewhere else, on the border between the north and the south, was a barren grassland. A man in a black robe was walking alone on the grassland where ferocious beasts roamed. When the ferocious beasts hidden in the dark discovered this person, they did not pounce toward him. Instead, they turned and ran, afraid of being discovered by this person. Arriving in front of a lake, the man in the black robe stopped. He took off the black robe on his head, revealing the face of a silver-haired human. He was Su Yu, who was heading toward the Holy Mountain. This place was already within the boundaries of the Holy Mountain. It was also the central region of the Dark Star civilization. With the Holy Mountain as the center, it was the territory of the Holy Mountain. In terms of size, it was comparable to the moon-worshipping cult and the dustless moon sect combined. The grassland before him was part of the Holy Mountain's territory. Sima Biyun probably didn't expect that I would come to the Holy Mountain even if I didn't help her obtain the formation stones. Su Yu touched the jade pendant at his waist. Because the scabbard is also at the Holy Mountain. This was the information that Su Yu had obtained from Gu Xing's dream. The scabbard was in the sacred mountain. Moreover, it was at the peak of the sacred mountain, where the King of Darkness rested. Firstly, he wanted to find the scabbard, and secondly, he wanted to obtain the formation stone. At the very least, he needed to have a detailed understanding of the sacred mountain. Unfortunately, the leaders of the 10 major factions had never been qualified to ascend the sacred mountain. They also did not know the specific details of the sacred mountain. Su Yu could only think of a way by himself. It had only been 10 days since he entered the sacred mountain, and it would still take him half a year to reach the sacred mountain. With Su Yu's yin-yang escape technique, he could traverse the entire Dark Star civilization in half a year's time. It would only take him 2 months to travel a mere few 100 trillion miles. The reason he needed half a year was because of the special pressure around the sacred mountain. As soon as he entered, he could clearly feel the pressure. The divine power in his body was rather sluggish, not even half of what it was normally. Moreover, the higher the altitude, the greater the pressure. Is this the pressure of the sacred mountain? The rumors are true. Before coming here, he had browsed through some simple information. Within the area covered by the sacred mountain, all creatures were suppressed. The power of that suppression originated from the sacred mountain. Regardless of whether it was the divine warriors of heaven and earth or the overlords, their strength would be suppressed by more than half. Moreover, they could not fly at high altitudes, let alone teleport. They could only rely on their feet to walk and simple low-altitude flight. Therefore, the journey would be extraordinarily long. He stopped for a while by the silver-white lake in front of him to recover the divine power that he had lost. Using the yin-yang wings of Supreme Pole all the way here, he was a little tired. Sitting cross-legged by the lake, Su Yu immediately closed his eyes and began to recover. However, as soon as he closed his eyes, he opened them slightly and stared at the silver lake in surprise. He sensed thousands of strange souls quickly rising from the bottom of the lake and rushing towards him. Those souls were all incomplete, as if they were born this way. Gulp! Suddenly, a creature that looked like a toad scuttled out of the silver lake and jumped towards Su Yu. The toad's cultivation was not weak. It was actually at the level of a golden overlord. It was quite dangerous for anyone below the level of a silver overlord to encounter it. Su Yu was about to kill it without batting an eyelid. All of a sudden, an ear-piercing whistle of an arrow came from behind, piercing the toad and killing it on the spot. The toads that had emerged from the water saw the scene and lay motionless on the surface of the silver lake, staring at the 2 people who were slowly walking towards the lakeside. It was a man and a woman. Strangely, they were not people of the Dark Star civilization, but humans. The old man was about 80 years old, and his cultivation was at the level of a single-crowned divine warrior. The young girl beside him was no more than 20 years old, and only had the cultivation of a peak overlord. At this moment, the young girl was holding a black crossbow in her hand. She was the one who had shot the arrow just now. Grandpa, the outsiders these days are really bold. They dare to train by the lakeside without knowing the Toad Lake clearly. They won't even know how they died. The young girl tilted her head and looked at Suyu, shaking her head. Suyu looked at the two of them in surprise. As the holy land of the Dark Star civilization, humans were allowed to roam freely? The old man said, "Dyer, take care of the toad. Don't let its soul escape." The young girl nodded and rushed over quickly. With a small fireball, she burned the toad's corpse and soul on the spot. Suyu saw with his own eyes that the toad's soul tried to escape the moment it was burned. Moreover, the soul changed when it left the body. It became extremely evil and ferocious, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, full of resentment. Clapping her hands, the young girl looked at Suyu and said, "Why are you still standing by the lakeside? Do you want to feed the toads?" Suyu nodded and left the lakeside with his hands clasped behind his back. He cupped his fists at the old man and said, "Thank you for saving me." "Hey!" The young girl put her hands on her hips and stared at Suyu. "Are your eyes not working? The person who saved you is me, it's me." Suyu smiled. She was indeed the one who shot the arrow, but it was the old man who had frightened the toads that were about to jump onto the lake. She couldn't save him with just one arrow, although Suyu didn't need their help at all. "Don't worry, it's nothing." The old man nodded and called out to the young girl, "Let's go back to the tribe." Suyu thought for a moment and said, "Please wait." The old man turned around and looked at him. There was a hint of rejection in his eyes. Suyu understood and took off the hat on his head, revealing his human face. The old man was surprised, and his eyes softened a lot. The young girl next to him covered her mouth and looked at Suyu in surprise. "Wow, you are a ridiculously handsome human. Well, my arrow didn't go to waste. So, you are a fellow human." The old man smiled. "Why did you call us?" Suyu cupped his fists and said, "I came from the territory of the moon-worshipping cult, and I want to go to the holy mountain to pay my respects. However, I know nothing about the rules of the holy mountain. Can you tell me some relevant information?" Countless creatures came to the holy mountain to pay their respects every year, so the grandfather and grandson were not surprised. "I see. If you don't mind, you can come to my tribe as a guest. It is also the only way for you to go to the holy mountain," the old man said. Suyu cupped his fists and bowed. "Thank you, elder." The young girl tilted her head and said, "Grandfather, why did you bring him back to the tribe? You are not a good person." The old man blew his beard and glared at her. "How can you talk about your grandfather like that? I am indeed not a good person, but this fellow is quite talented. At such a young age, he is already a half-step martial artist, and his divine energy is quite strong. The possibility of him becoming a martial artist is very high. It is not a bad thing to bring him back to make friends. Will that be a bad thing? Our leader is still waiting for us to bring back the goods we bought from the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce. Will it be risky to bring a stranger along?" The old man shook his head slightly. "Don't worry. Those who dare to stay at Toad Lake are obviously not familiar with the Holy Mountain. They are probably not from the Wolf Smoke tribe." Suyu's ears twitched slightly, trying to eavesdrop on their inner thoughts. "Goods? Is it something important?" Rumble. Suddenly, the earth trembled slightly. Chapter 1902. His gaze penetrated the space and saw dozens of ferocious beasts, each of which was 30 feet tall, rumbling towards them from the grassland. Their legs were powerful and their bodies were heavy. Every step they took caused the earth to rumble and shake. Even the Toad Lake was affected. Ripples appeared, scaring away the toads that had emerged from the water. The old man frowned and said, "I don't mean well. Dyer, let's go." The girl became vigilant and glanced at Suyu before leaving. What about him, Grandpa? If the people chasing them were really from the Wolf Smoke tribe, there was no possibility of Suyu being left alive. At the very least, his soul would be searched. Him? The old man looked hesitant. Normally, it would be fine to bring him along. But now that they were being chased, he would be a burden. Grandpa, help the Buddha to the west. Since I'm a good person, you should take him along. The young girl winked playfully. The old man looked at her affectionately and said helplessly, You! He turned to look at Suyu and said, My little friend, come with us. Then, he grabbed Suyu's right hand with his left hand and held his granddaughter's hand with his left. Then, the desolate power in his body surged violently and turned into a spring. He flew out like a grasshopper, jumping rapidly between heaven and earth. Even the divine warriors of heaven and earth couldn't fly freely. They had to rely on the desolate power to travel on foot. The pressure on the holy mountain was immense. Suyu said, Thank you for saving me. He took another look at the girl. Although she was unruly, she was pure and kind. What are you looking at? My fists are as beautiful as my face. The girl raised her fist with a faint smile, thinking that Suyu was lusting after her beauty. Suyu was amused. She was indeed beautiful, just like Qin Xian'er when he first met her. She was unruly, willful, and pure. As he thought of this, a trace of nostalgia appeared at the corner of his mouth. How was Xian'er now after she was taken away by the Xianming Path Master? Xia Jingyu was fine. What about her? If he hadn't met the girl in front of him, he couldn't remember how long he hadn't missed her. Xian, running into me is really unfortunate for her. Suyu sighed softly. If she had not met Suyu, Qin Xian'er would have been naive and lively, living a carefree life under the protection of the Duke of Xianyu. She had her own husband, her own children, her own family. Unlike now, he had to leave his hometown and live in a foreign land without anyone to rely on. He owed Xian'er too much. When he looked at the young lady in front of him again, he couldn't help but feel a sense of intimacy. Hey, you're still looking. Do you believe that I will shoot an arrow at you? The young girl pouted and waved the crossbow in her hand as she glared at Suyu. Suyu chuckled and turned his head to look ahead. Even without looking back, he knew that this pair of grandfather and grandson would not be able to escape. The savage beast behind him was simply too fast. In less than 2 hours, it would catch up to him. The auras of the creatures standing on top of the beasts were also very powerful. The weakest of them was at least half a step into the Emperor realm, while the strongest ones were at the single crown Emperor realm. The elder had a premonition that something was amiss. He looked back at the billowing smoke and dust in the sky behind him, his expression grave. Dire, I'm afraid we can't escape. The elder gradually came to a stop, took out a storage device from his sleeve, and handed it to the young girl. Then, he looked at Suyu and said, My young friend, the pursuers will probably focus on me, so please escort Dire to the Rising Sun tribe. As long as she arrives safely, our tribe will satisfy you with whatever help you need. Was he luring the enemy away? His cultivation was the strongest. As long as the enemy was not stupid, they would have a reason to believe that the goods were in his hands. Suyu shook his head. I don't think there's any point in running away separately. There is a very strong aura in this storage device. They were able to accurately find you in the vast prairie because of this aura. The elder's eyes narrowed as he stared at Suyu. He took the storage device and scanned it. There was no obvious aura. Wait. Suddenly, the elder took out a palm-sized purple-gold material from the storage device. It looked ordinary, but if one were to sense it carefully, one would notice that there was an extremely obscure soul aura attached to it. If it wasn't for Suyu's reminder, he wouldn't have been able to detect such a weak soul aura fluctuation under normal circumstances. A hint of surprise flickered in his eyes. The elder clenched his fist and was about to crush the item when he heard Suyu say calmly, If I were you, I would use the aura of this item to lure away all the pursuers. Hearing that, the elder's palm paused and his eyes lit up. He looked at Suyu again, nodded slightly, and took out a strange beast the size of a puppy. It had a light body, slender limbs, and a timid personality. It was obviously a small beast that excelled at escaping. The elder tied the material to the small beast, then patted its body. The frightened small beast immediately ran away, fleeing into the distance. "Let's go this way." The elder grabbed Suyu and Dai and leaped in another direction. 2 hours later, the elder stopped and looked back. His face was filled with relief. The pursuers had indeed disappeared. They had successfully shaken them off. "We're safe." The elder heaved a sigh of relief. Dyer patted her chest and took a deep breath. "That was close. Strange, when did our goods get tampered with?" The elder shook his head slightly, indicating that he did not know. He looked at Suyu meaningfully and gently cupped his fist. "Thanks to your reminder just now, we were able to escape danger." Dyer turned her head and looked at him curiously. "I didn't expect you to be so smart even though you look so stupid." "Not bad. Now that you've come to our tribe, I'll treat you to roasted earth dragons." Suyu smiled calmly. "Now is not the time to be happy. Who knows if the other goods were tampered with? It's better to return to the tribe as soon as possible." Hearing that, the elder nodded, but as he turned around, a strange light flashed in his eyes. Half a month later, beside a clear river, tens of thousands of tents, large and small, bloomed like mushrooms on a fertile land. There were many people coming and going, no less than 10 million. It turned out that every tent was a cavern world that could accommodate many people. This was the Rising Sun Tribe. "We've finally arrived safely." The elder breathed a sigh of relief and led the two into a golden tent. There was another world inside. There were countless mountains and rivers, and it was bustling with people. As soon as they entered, dozens of half-step emperors of the human race appeared, looking pleasantly surprised. "The Realm Lord is back." "It's the Realm Lord." "Greetings, Realm Lord." The elder nodded affectionately and said, "Was the cavern world peaceful when I was away?" One of the women said, "Fortunately, although some creatures abandoned themselves and became bandits, killing and looting everywhere, we eliminated them in time and did not cause too many casualties." "That's good." The elder frowned slightly at first, then relaxed. Suyu was a little surprised. At the realm of the divine warriors of heaven and earth, there were very few who cared about the life and death of ordinary creatures in the cavern world. The elder in front of him was a surprise. "You guys continue to patrol," the elder said, taking Suyu and Dyer back to a relatively simple house in the cavern world. The house was located on an ordinary mountain, but near the mountain, there were cities built one after another. Countless creatures worshipped in the direction of the mountain all the time, vaguely regarding the elder as their god. "Surprised?" "Hee, my grandfather is the master of the cavern world, and everyone worships him," Dyer said proudly. Suyu did not speak, squinting at the sky. In the world that ordinary people could not see, a trace of strange power flowed from the bodies of the people to the mountain. At the top of the mountain, it converged into a spiritual pool. Faith. Looking back, Suyu opened his soul eyes, and his pupils shrank to find that the elder's soul was full of dense insects, which were continuously gnawing at his soul. This place was also accumulating faith like the moon-worshipping cult, and the faith was also densely packed with insects. He calmly withdrew his gaze and nodded. "Well, it is indeed amazing." Then, the elder asked Suyu to wait for a moment, and he went to the place where the spiritual pool was located. Although the spiritual pool was protected by a formation, it could not block Suyu's eyes. In the spiritual pool, there was a lifelike statue, which was constantly absorbing faith. When Suyu wanted to see the statue's true face, the statue's face became blurred, and he could not see it clearly. The elder walked in front of the statue and respectfully offered the materials he had obtained to the statue. The statue came to life and swallowed the materials. Seeing this scene, Suyu was shocked. What was that statue? You are in a daze again. I will call you Dummy from now on. Dai gave Suyu a nickname very unceremoniously. Dummy, let's go. I will show you around the Rising Sun tribe. Suyu nodded. Under her guidance, Suyu not only toured this cavern world, but also visited 7 or 8 other cavern worlds. Unsurprisingly, each cavern world had a spiritual pool to collect faith. Every spirit pool had a strange black statue on top of it. Miss, do the people of the cavern world worship the masters of the cavern world? Call me Lady Butterfly. Dai raised her neck. Suyu smiled. Lady Butterfly. That's more like it. She beamed with joy and said, That's right, the ruler is the highest deity. They treat humans as their faith and have collected quite a bit of faith energy for this. Suyu was a little surprised. Then, who is the faith energy collected for? Of course it is for our holy king, the king of darkness that you people in the outside world call, Dyer said matter-of-factly. That black statue was the king of darkness. No, it should be something similar to the moon-worshipping cult to pass on faith. Unexpectedly, the king of darkness was also collecting faith energy like the moon-worshipping cult. Okay, let's go home. Dyer was in a good mood after a whole day of shopping. When he returned to the thatched cottage, the old man had already prepared a set of dishes and wine. Ah, Grandpa, there is spiritual wine. You are so generous. Usually you are reluctant to drink it, but today you took it out for Dummy. Dyer grabbed a cup and drank it first. The elder chuckled. Come on, my little friend, sit down and have a drink. Suyu sat down, but he did not move his chopsticks or drink. He just sat there calmly. Is the food not to your taste? Shaking his head, Suyu said calmly, It is not that it is not to my taste, but I am not used to drinking poisoned wine. However, if you insist on inviting me, I will reluctantly taste the poisoned wine. Chapter 1903. Dyer unhappily pouted her little mouth. Idiot, what nonsense are you talking about? This is the drunken immortal wine that I brewed. How could it be poison? Suddenly, Dyer found it difficult to breathe. Her eyes widened in disbelief as she stared at her grandfather, who was just inches away. Her grandfather's expression was cold as he stared at Suyu. I knew there was something wrong with you, he said. She grabbed Dyer and fed her a pill. Dyer recovered immediately and said angrily, Grandfather, are you trying to poison me? If I wanted to poison you, would I have allowed you to live until today? The old man rolled his eyes and stared at Suyu. I wanted to test this fellow clansman. Who asked you to drink it first? I. Dyer glared at him angrily. I'm not your biological granddaughter, am I? What kind of grandfather would poison his own granddaughter? Her face was full of resentment. Suyu chuckled lightly. Hero Butterfly, don't worry. This isn't some lethal poisonous wine, and it won't do any harm to overlords like us. It will only prevent us from using our divine powers. Dyer glared at her grandfather. What are you trying to do? The old man's eyes flashed. A desolate force suddenly pressed down and enveloped Suyu. He said coldly, Of course I'm going to capture him and investigate him thoroughly. Grandfather, are you crazy? Dyer said in shock. However, the old man grabbed Suyu's shoulder and asked in a stern voice, Who are you? Suyu did not move, allowing the old man to grab him. To be precise, he did not want to move. Otherwise, a single crown king could be destroyed with a flick of his finger. I am a passerby that you rescued, Suyu said calmly. The old man snorted. Passerby? Can a passerby penetrate the space storage device and feel the ripples of soul energy that even I cannot? I'm guessing that you are actually from the Wolf Smoke tribe? You wanted to gain my trust and sneak in here, right? Suyu sighed. Sigh, I just wanted to understand the holy mountain from you. He felt helpless. If he ignored them, they would be killed by the Wolf Smoke tribe. If he interfered, they would misunderstand him as a member of the Wolf Smoke tribe. It was hard being a human. It's up to you. So, how do you want to deal with me? Suyu asked calmly. He had already asked around and found out that the one with the highest cultivation here was only the chief of the Rising Sun tribe, who was a double crown emperor. No matter if he wanted to leave or stay, no one could stop him. Before investigating clearly, I won't kill you, but I'll send you to the stone prison to reflect on yourself. The old man took Suyu and left the cavern world with one step. He came to one of the empty tents outside the camp. That cavern world was full of tall mountains. The mountain had been hollowed out and turned into an endless cage. There were already countless troublesome people imprisoned within. This was the cavern world where the prisoners of the Rising Sun tribe were detained. The old man brought him to a heavily guarded cage that was sealed with restrictive seals. I'll give you 3 days to reflect, the old man said coldly before turning around and leaving. Suyu sighed, as he knew that the cage wouldn't be able to hold him. However, if he wanted to obtain information, he might be able to get it from the cellmate before him. Of course, there was no need for Suyu to deliberately befriend them. They would also take special care of Suyu. Hey boy, your skin is soft and tender. Is this your first time here? His cellmates were all fierce-looking men. One of them, who was neither a man nor a woman, licked his lips and looked Suyu up and down with a meaningful look on his face. Suyu said lightly, "It's my first time here. Well, by the way, I have something to ask you." The cellmate, who was neither a man nor a woman, pinched his fingers and twisted his waist. "Oh, I know the most about you. However, there is no free information in this world. If you are willing to accompany me for one night, I can tell you anything you want to know." Suyu smiled. "Sure, I'll accompany all of you for one night." Not long after, the prison in the depths of the mountains began to resound with howls of anguish. The next morning, Suyu's finger left the forehead of the last cellmate. He searched through the memories of more than a dozen people and got a lot of useful information. Among them was the Holy Mountain. The Holy Mountain was closed all year round and not open to the public. No one was allowed to enter. None of those who entered had ever come out alive. Because the Holy Mountain was special, it could release a powerful pressure at any time. Even a 3-crown king would be crushed to death in an instant. Only the people of the Holy Mountain who served the King of Darkness could walk freely on the Holy Mountain. Suyu's plan to sneak into the Holy Mountain was not feasible at all. However, there was only one circumstance when the Holy Mountain was open to the public. Faith. Every 100 years, all the big and small tribes would send the black statues to the Holy Mountain. Only then would the pressure of the Holy Mountain dissipate. If he wanted to enter the Holy Mountain, he had to take advantage of that opportunity. After understanding this, Suyu smiled lightly. It was time to leave for the Holy Mountain. He flicked his finger and was about to break open the Holy Mountain. Suddenly, a sneaky voice came from outside the cell. "Hey, dummy, are you in there? Dyer?" "Yes." Suyu retracted his finger and came to the door. "Why are you here?" He saw Dyer holding a key in her hand. She opened the cell door with a smile and said, "Why? You don't want me to come? I'll leave then." "Wait." Suyu smiled. Butterfly giggled. "Watch this heroine's beauty save the fool." She opened the cell door and looked at the prisoners lying on the floor. She covered her mouth and smiled. "I was worried that you would be lonely. It turns out that it's quite lively here." Suyu asked, "Where did you get the key?" "I stole it," Dyer said indifferently. "I think that old fellow's brain must have been burnt to the point of muddle-headedness. Dumbo clearly saved us, yet he still locked you up. Really, it seems that a heroine like me has to make up for his mistake." Suyu did not speak. If he was the old man, he would also have doubts. For the safety of the tribe, the old man did not do anything wrong. "Let's go. I will send you out of the tribe." Dyer gave Suyu a new robe. Coupled with Dyer's identity, they easily left the cavern world in the cell under the watchful eyes of the guards. Outside, there were 2 wild beasts prepared by Dyer. Riding on them, Dyer sent Su Yu out of the influence of the tribe. Standing at the border, Dyer took out a booklet and threw it to Su Yu. "You don't have to thank me." Su Yu opened it. It was a more detailed map of the Holy Mountain, an introduction of the major tribes, and a detailed description of the Holy Mountain. The handwriting was still clear. Obviously, it had been written last night. Dyer. Su Yu stared at her and suddenly felt that Qin Xianer's figure overlapped with hers. If Xianer was here, she would have done the same. "Call me a heroine." Dyer raised her chin and stared at him with her almond-shaped eyes. Then she said, "Let's go. My mission ends here. Take care of yourself." She raised her long whip and was ready to activate the wild beast. Suddenly, a slight vibration came from afar. Su Yu immediately released the heavenly eyes and observed from a distance. Seeing the scene in front of him, his pupils shrank. On the other side of the Rising Sun tribe, tens of thousands of wild beasts rushed into the Rising Sun tribe. Countless powerful foreign races flew down from the wild beasts and attacked the tribes of all sizes. The attack came abruptly. The Rising Sun tribe was not prepared at all and hastily responded. A powerful aura of a double-crowned king rose into the sky from an exceptionally large tent. A golden-faced, middle-aged man rushed out in anger. "Wolf Smoke Tribe, how dare you violate the Holy Accord and openly declare war?" The tribes within the Holy Mountain were under the control of the Holy Mountain, and they were not allowed to kill each other. This was because war was bound to bring destruction. If those creatures died in large numbers, who would give birth to faith? "Ha, Ri Donglai, you are too far away from the Holy Mountain. Your news is too outdated. You don't even know the new orders from the Holy Mountain." With a swoosh, a creature with a wolf's head flew out from among the wild beasts of the Wolf Smoke tribe. A mace of human bone hung diagonally from its waist. The golden-faced, middle-aged man gasped. "The third leader of the Wolf Smoke tribe?" The Wolf Smoke tribe was a super tribe and one of the three major tribes of the Holy Mountain. In comparison, the Rising Sun tribe could only be regarded as a medium-sized tribe. In the Holy Mountain, there were no less than 100 such medium-sized tribes. The Wolf Smoke tribe's sphere of influence was extremely wide. They often relied on their powerful force to expel and plunder other weaker tribes, robbing their population and taking away their faith statues. Small tribes could be said to be annoyed but helpless. As long as the Wolf Smoke tribe did not kill or wage war, and only relied on tens or hundreds of powerful force to plunder, the Holy Mountain would not punish them. For many years, only small tribes had been invaded. The Wolf Smoke tribe could only plunder medium-sized tribes by waging war. Therefore, although the Rising Sun tribe was aware of the evil reputation of the Wolf Smoke tribe, they had never been wary of them waging war. Now they were caught unprepared. Ri Donglai's expression was incomparably grave. Not to mention that they had hastily responded to the battle and had no time to mobilize enough effective force. Even if they had, they would undoubtedly lose this sudden battle. The Wolf Smoke tribe had 3 double-crowned kings. The third leader was the weakest among them, but even the weakest was stronger than the leader of a medium-sized tribe. In a real fight, they were not a match at all. Hearing the screams and roars of the tribesmen coming from the big and small cavern worlds, and seeing the faith statues being snatched away by the Wolf Smoke tribe, Ri Donglai growled, "All the people of the Rising Sun tribe, rise up and kill the enemy." However, it was too late to kill the enemy at this moment. The defenseless Rising Sun tribe was completely wiped out by the Wolf Smoke tribe. Every cavern world was putting up an extremely difficult fight. Among them, in an ordinary cavern world, Dai-Er's grandfather was at the edge of the spiritual pool, roaring and fighting with a single crowned king at the same time. Around the hut, corpses were everywhere. They were the half-step emperors who guarded this cavern world. At this moment, all of them had become cold corpses. "Ming Guang, do you know who I am?" The single-crowned emperor who was fighting with him was a man wrapped in a black robe. The old man stared at him coldly. Snatching the Rising Sun tribe statue, No matter who it is, I will not let you succeed. Ha ha! The black-robed man sneered. No matter who it is? What if it is me? Chapter 1904. It was not the wolf-headed man of the wolf-smoke tribe, but a real human. There was an unusually deep scar on his cheek, like a ferocious martial art lying on his face. It was very terrifying. His cultivation had reached the Emperor realm, and he had the ability to be reborn. It was easy for him to repair these scars. If not, he could rebuild his body. Ming Ling Fei. The old man recognized him instantly. Staring at the ferocious scar, his old face flashed with a complicated expression. You actually became the Emperor of Heaven and Earth. The young man named Ming Ling Fei had a fierce look in his eyes. His face was surging with madness. You didn't expect that not only did I not die, but I also became the Emperor of the Wolf-Smoke tribe. The old man repelled several creatures of the Wolf-Smoke tribe who were besieging him. He scolded angrily, Ming Ling Fei, you are the most outstanding talent of the Rising Sun tribe. Now you actually joined the Wolf-Smoke tribe and killed your former compatriot. Ah! Shan Ling Fei looked up and laughed. I am not only the Rising Sun tribe's talent, I almost became your grandson-in-law. He Junran was the old man's biological grandson. You scum! A look of deep hatred flashed across the old man's face, and his killing intent was deep. Shan Ling Fei was the most outstanding young leader of the Rising Sun tribe. He was also the old man's proud disciple. His cultivation soon reached the half-step Emperor realm and was far ahead of his peers. However, he was not a good person. He often bullied the weak and committed crimes in the Rising Sun tribe. The old man wanted to expel him from the Rising Sun tribe. No one expected that not only did Shan Ling Fei not repent, but he also made a dangerous move. He took advantage of the old man's absence to invite Ming Dai to the wild, intending to do something indecent to her. What he wanted was to do what was done. In this way, Ming Dai would become his woman. Even if the old man was not willing to admit it, he would have to swallow his anger and take him as his grandson-in-law. In this way, he would not be driven out of the Rising Sun tribe. Instead, he could inherit the old man's cave world in the future. Fortunately, the old man was on guard and let the other disciples in the cave keep an eye on him. In this way, he saved Ming Dai when he showed his sinister side. After learning of this, the old man pursued Shan Ling Fei for an entire year. Finally, in front of the Wolf-Smoke tribe's heaven-splitting lake, he killed Shan Ling Fei with one stroke of his sword and his corpse fell into the lake. Now, it seemed that the sword strike back then was not clean and thorough enough, leaving him with a sliver of life. Moreover, he had coincidentally broken through to become an emperor of heaven and earth. The old man instantly realized why the goods they had purchased earlier had been tampered with. Only Shan Ling Fei knew which shop in the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce the Rising Sun tribe often purchased goods from. They must have bribed the shopkeepers and assistants of that shop in advance and asked them to tamper with the goods. Now that he thought about it, his initial doubts were clear. Scum? Hee, if you fulfill my wish and let me become Dai Er's husband, then there will be no scum. And today, I won't have to invade your tribe and plunder without restraint. Shan Ling Fei sneered. He glanced around and instantly saw the entire cavern world. He said coldly, "Oh? That little girl was actually not here? That's a pity. After 5 years, that girl has already grown up and become more delicious, right? As long as I am still alive, don't even think about touching her." The old man roared angrily, and a chain of law flew out with a rumble and slashed at Shan Ling Fei. Shan Ling Fei was not afraid. He just sneered and chose to dodge. He did not intend to entangle with the old man. Instead, he leaped into the depths of the cavern world and swept away everything. With the power of an emperor, even the movement of a finger was a disaster that could destroy the heavens and the earth. When he had the intention to kill, the interior of the cavern world immediately collapsed. Hundreds of millions of living beings were instantly reduced to nothingness. Among them were women who were breastfeeding, young boys and girls who were parading together, students who were studying in private schools, and white-haired old men who were playing chess in the courtyard. Disaster suddenly came, and all the peace was shattered into nothingness in an instant. The child was still sucking breast milk in ignorance, but he didn't know that his mother had fallen in a pool of blood and would never wake up again. The young boy and the young girl were still holding hands, but they fell on the cold grassland. Their empty and dull eyes stared at the blurry sky, and they could no longer open their eyes. The corpses of the students were splattered, and the room was stained with blood. Only the teacher was left lying on the armchair, trembling with fear. There were no more students to teach. The white-haired old men fell motionless on the ground, leaving only an unfinished game of chess. Scenes of tragedy appeared in the cavern world, making people grieve. The old man's eyes were wide open. "Bastard! Go to hell!" Shan Lingfei let out a long roar. After killing a large number of people, he swaggered away and laughed. "Old thing, you owe me this, but this is just the beginning. I will come again." Then, he smashed the cavern world and rushed out of the cavern world with a grim smile. The outside world was in chaos. Countless experts of the Rising Sun tribe were slaughtered. In the face of the sudden war, they were defenseless and were killed. Ri Donglai fought with the third leader of the Wolf Smoke tribe and was defeated. Watching the people of the tribe being slaughtered, his eyes were red with anger, but there was nothing he could do. After half an hour of fighting, tens of thousands of cavern worlds were destroyed. But after such a long time, they finally had enough time to organize a powerful counterattack. The Wolf Smoke tribe only brought 10,000 beasts for this surprise attack, so their military strength was limited. The third leader looked down at the battle situation on the ground, knocked Ri Donglai away with a mace, and laughed. "Retreat, come back another day. Yo!" The wolf-head soldiers, who burned, killed, and looted, came out of the cavern world and rode away on their own beasts. Behind them, the Wolf Smoke tribe chased them, but they were hastily organized soldiers and did not have enough mobility. They could only eat the dust behind the beasts and could not effectively chase them. Suyu, who had witnessed all this, looked calm as usual. War had always been cruel, bloody, and merciless. Accustomed to war, his mood was not the slightest bit affected. If anything, it was the direction in which the Wolf Smoke tribe was marching was very coincidentally in the direction where Suyu was. In order to avoid getting bogged down, their marching route was a straight line, from the other end of the Rising Sun tribe to this end. Suyu and the others happened to be standing on this end. The area covered by the beasts was too wide, and there was no way to hide now. But, so what? Ming Dai sensed that something was wrong. Staring at the constantly trembling ground, her expression changed. "Is this the attack of the army?" As she spoke, a boundless billowing smoke appeared in her field of vision, and it kept coming at an amazing speed. When she saw the shape of the beasts, Ming Dai's face was as pale as paper. "The Wolf Smoke tribe," she said with great difficulty, almost unable to believe her eyes. A scale of more than 10,000 troops could be regarded as a war. This was not allowed within the scope of the Holy Mountain. But it was unnecessary to say anything now. She came to her senses and exclaimed, "Run!" Suyu did not move and said, "Where can we escape to?" "That's right, how could they escape? On the plains, the beasts were the fastest and most mobile force. There was no way they could escape. Moreover, the army of beasts had also discovered Suyu and the other humans." Dan Lingfei's eyes were sharp, and he spotted Ming Dai immediately. He let out a sinister laugh. "Oh, a heaven-sent beauty. Brothers, crush that man into minced meat and capture the woman." He let out an evil laugh. "Tonight, I will dote on my junior sister and make up for the regret from 5 years ago." The nearby warriors of the Wolf Smoke tribe immediately mobilized their beasts to chase after them. 10 beasts charged forward. 5 of the beasts on the left revealed cold and cruel expressions. They mobilized their beasts to pounce forward and stomp on Su Yu. The other beasts captured Ming Dai. Facing such great danger, Ming Dai no longer had the demeanor of a chivalrous lady. She covered her eyes and screamed. Su Yu's expression was indifferent. He gently drew a line in the air with a finger. Numerous space blades flew out, easily splitting the attacking beasts and the warriors on top of them into two. The huge inertia caused their corpses to tumble and crash onto the ground. They bounced up from the ground and flew over Su Yu's head. From beginning to end, Su Yu's feet had not moved an inch. Seeing this, Dan Ling Fei's face flashed with a hint of hostility. How dare you ruin my plans? Die! A chain of rules suddenly shot out and bombarded Su Yu. Su Yu did not dodge. He pulled out his sword and casually tapped the tip of the sword on the chain, bouncing it back. The tremendous force of the sword tip was transmitted back to Dan Ling Fei through the chain of rules. His body shook violently and he almost flew out of the beast. A divine warrior of heaven and earth was not only knocked back by a half-divine warrior, but he was also almost injured. This scene immediately attracted the attention of the Wolf Smoke tribe's third leader. The Rising Sun tribe's new generation of heaven rulers? The third leader coldly snorted and threw the human bone wolf tooth mace at Su Yu. It looked like a simple throw, but it was filled with the immense power of the third leader, the double-crown divine warrior, as well as the power of rules. Even a single crown divine warrior would die if he were to encounter it. Moreover, the other party was only a half-divine warrior. However, Su Yu still used one sword strike. This sword actually split the incoming human bone into two, directly breaking it into two. The third leader's pupils shrank. His eyes were filled with astonishment. His human bone wolf tooth mace was forged from the leg bone of a double-crown divine warrior, along with many other materials. It was extremely hard, and most double-crown divine warriors could not even shake it. Yet, it had been split in half by a single sword strike. Moreover, judging from the young man's expression, he seemed very relaxed. Therefore, he must have held back a lot of his strength. A sense of danger welled up in his heart. His intuition told him not to get any closer to this person, or it would be very dangerous. However, he could not sit back and watch as the Rising Sun tribe produced a strong martial artist of the younger generation, threatening the Wolf Smoke tribe's position. Kill him! Chapter 1905. Su Yu waved his hand in front of him, and a huge space lotus enveloped him and Ming Dai. The incoming divine techniques were all blocked by the blooming petals. At the same time, all the wild beasts that came close were crushed into a bloody mist by the space power of the lotus. Not a single trace was left. A long, bloody gap appeared in the mighty army of wild beasts. At least 100 wild beasts and soldiers had mysteriously died in the blooming space lotus. The third leader looked back to see a blood-stained red lotus in full bloom. Within the lotus stood a silver-haired human. He gasped. A master of the law of space. Boundless shock rose in his heart, and a deep sense of fear lingered in his heart. Let's go. The third leader's scalp went numb, and he no longer had the will to fight. He urged the wild beast beneath his feet to flee, far ahead of the others. The speed at which he fled was even faster than when he had come. At that moment, he felt a chill run down his spine. He wished he could grow another pair of wings, and wished even more that he had never come today. It was rumored that those who had mastered the law of space were all earth-shattering figures. One's true strength could not be measured by one's cultivation level. Su Yu turned around with his sword in hand, staring at the fleeing third leader. He raised his sword and pointed it at his back. Annihilate all traces. He lightly waved his sword. Suddenly, a soundless sword energy slashed out. It passed through the army of wild beasts. Everywhere it passed, be it the wild beasts, the warriors on the wild beasts, or the weeds on the road, it was as if all their life force had been sucked out. The weeds quickly withered, turning into dust. The wild beasts immediately fell to the ground, their bodies quickly turning gray. The eyes of the warriors rolled back and they fell to the ground. Their bodies were empty, without any life force, as if they had been sucked out by something strange. The entire row of wild beasts and warriors had no chance to resist, dying on the spot. Even the single-crowned king had died on the spot. The third leader, who was fleeing at the front, only managed to turn his head to look in horror before he was swept away by the unparalleled sword energy. Then, his whole body quickly dimmed and his head went limp. He fell from his thin body dead. Third leader. The warriors of the Wolf Smoke tribe who had caught up were horrified. The double-crowned king had died just like that, without any resistance? They charged forward and picked up the corpse of the third leader. However, as soon as they touched the corpse, they were affected by the lingering sword chi on the corpse, and their vitality was sapped away on the spot. Their bodies went limp and they fell from the savage beast tribe. Ah! A soldier at the back saw this scene and felt his scalp go numb. Just a moment ago, they were still bloodthirsty and ferocious, but now they were as scared as tiny ants. He moved sideways to avoid the corpse of the third leader, not daring to touch it again. Just like that, the invincible army of savage beasts charged forward majestically, but no one dared to pick up the corpse of the third leader. Dan Lingfei's heart thumped wildly. His eyes were filled with jealousy and murderous intent as he stared at Su Yu's figure. Is he a new disciple of that old thing? But how could he be that powerful? Zhang Xian had no idea what the third leader meant by the great accomplishment of the laws of space. All he knew was that the third leader must have grasped a secret art that surpassed his cultivation. Quick! Go back and report to the great leader and second leader. The death of the three leaders would definitely cause a huge uproar. Rumble! The countless savage beasts fled, leaving behind the corpse of the third leader, which lay alone on the ground. Su Yu sucked in the air and retrieved the space storage device of the third leader. Without looking at what was inside, he casually threw it to Ming Dai. As a reward for saving me twice, this is for you. Ming Dai was dumbfounded, looking at Su Yu without blinking. As long as she was not a fool, she would understand that Su Yu was actually a powerful hidden expert. The toad of the Toad Lake, the calamity of imprisonment, could not possibly harm him in the slightest. Regaining her senses, Ming Dai took a few steps back. Her expression was one of restraint and respect. She bowed with fear and trepidation. Junior Ming Dai pays her respects to Elder. Su Yu sighed lightly. He knew this would happen. After all, she was not Xiener. I'm fine, Su Yu calmly said. He looked at the ground full of corpses and the corpse of the third leader. After pondering for a moment, he turned around and walked toward the Rising Sun tribe. Let's go back and take a look. I hope you are mentally prepared. The Wolf Smoke tribe had suffered heavy losses. They would not let this matter rest. If he left, it would be difficult for the Rising Sun tribe to withstand the revenge of the Wolf Smoke tribe. Therefore, it was not easy to be a good person. Once it was done, it had to be done thoroughly. Otherwise, it would only be harming others. If he did not kill the third leader, the Wolf Smoke tribe would probably only occasionally come to plunder and steal some faith. But if he took action, he might invite the extermination of the Wolf Smoke tribe. Oh, all right. Ming Dai nodded her head cautiously, obediently following behind Su Yu. Su Yu said, "You don't have to be so formal with me. I am helping you because I admire you." His words had many layers of meaning in Ming Dai's ears. Which kind was he admiring? Is it my character or my beauty? If it was the former, who in the tribe would not dote on her? Was it because of my beauty? Did he fancy me and want to marry me? But I am not ready yet. She had only thought about how to have fun. She had never thought about starting a family. Looking at Su Yu's silhouette, his long silver hair, his handsome face, and his ability to crush his peers, Ming Dai thought that marrying such a person was not unacceptable. Oh! Ming Dai nodded her head gently, her mind full of thoughts. Su Yu sighed silently. He could listen to people's thoughts at any time. Knowing that Ming Dai had misunderstood him, he could not help but sigh. Back at the Rising Sun tribe, Ming Dai's mind was instantly replaced by grief and worry. The grassland was full of corpses of the Rising Sun tribe. They were carried by the dejected Rising Sun tribe warriors and placed together for their relatives to claim. Uncle Wang. Ming Dai immediately recognized one of the familiar faces. Uncle Wang had opened a blacksmith shop, and his craftsmanship was superb. Because of a small misunderstanding, Ming Dai was very angry. Since then, several people from the cavern world had come to his blacksmith shop and secretly made trouble, making him unable to forge iron. Every time she angered Uncle Wang to the point of glaring at her, Ming Dai would laugh and run away. Just a month ago, she had stolen Uncle Wang's newly forged iron hammer, making it impossible for him to report to his customers. Uncle Wang had run to her grandfather to complain. Looking at the familiar cold face, Ming Dai's tears flowed down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, Uncle Wang." She sobbed and wanted to say an apology, but he could no longer hear her. She looked at them one by one, and many familiar faces appeared in her eyes. In the end, she could not help but cry bitterly. She turned around and lay on Su Yu's shoulder, tears streaming down her face. Su Yu sighed slightly. "Life and death are unpredictable. Don't be too sad." After gently comforting her for a while, Su Yu took her back to the cavern world. The old man was repairing the seriously damaged cavern world. He asked his disciples to comfort the creatures who had suffered heavy casualties and help them rebuild their homes. Su Yu glanced at the devastation in the mortal world. He looked at the sorrowful creatures who were praying to their gods even more devoutly, begging for their blessings. He was touched. Mortals who were unable to face the disaster could only pin their hopes on the illusory gods, on others, and put their fate in the hands of others. Should it be said that it was sad or pitiful? Suddenly, Su Yu unexpectedly noticed that after a disaster, the speed of the gathering of faith was far greater than usual, about 10 times faster than in the past. In the days of ease and peace, only a small number of devout believers would consistently worship and believe in the gods. Most people enjoyed it with a peace of mind. However, after the disaster, their hearts were filled with fear, and their spirits had no one to rely on. Those who did not believe in the gods in the past also began to believe in them. Therefore, the gathering power of faith was erupting like a blowout. Just now, it clearly appeared in Dai Er's heart that the tribes within the scope of the Holy Mountain are not allowed to start a war. Now that the Wolf Smoke tribe has openly launched a war, it must have been approved by the Holy Mountain. Su Yu looked at the eruption of the power of faith, his heart as clear as a mirror. The King of Darkness was the source of the chaos. In order to obtain more faith, he did not hesitate to start a war and slaughter the people who believed in him. His heart could be destroyed. He increasingly felt that the path of faith was an evil path, a path of no return. "Dai, it's great that you are okay." The old man sensed the return of Ming Dai and immediately flashed over. Looking at Su Yu beside Ming Dai, he was not too surprised. The cavern world and the prison had also been massacred, and many prisoners had taken the opportunity to escape. Moreover, after the incident with Shanling Fei, he no longer had to doubt Su Yu's position. "It's good that you are still alive. Otherwise, I would have killed more people," the old man said apologetically. "You should leave, the Rising Sun tribe is no longer safe." Hearing him order her to leave, Ming Dai hurriedly said, "Grandfather, we were in danger, and he saved me." The old man was surprised. "What danger?" Ming Dai was about to tell the truth when Su Yu said indifferently, "We encountered 2 or 3 beasts of the Wolf Smoke tribe, and he helped Miss Ming Dai take care of them." Ming Dai was stunned, and then realized that he did not want others to know that he had killed the 3 leaders. She immediately fell silent. The old man's eyes lit up, and he looked at Su Yu in shock. "You can take care of 3 beasts and the warriors of the Wolf Smoke tribe? Not bad, your strength is beyond my expectations." The Wolf Smoke Tribe's army that attacked this time was the cream of the crop of the Wolf Smoke Tribe's elites. Together with the enormous size and extremely fast beasts, they had a great combat power that could take on 2 people at once. An unprepared human half-emperor realm could barely deal with one. Since this person could kill 3 of them, he should be quite strong among the half-emperor realm. Granddaughter, I, Mingguang, am extremely grateful for saving my life. The old man's real name was Mingguang, and he bowed to Suyu. Suyu accepted it calmly. Why couldn't he accept the gratitude of a single crown martial artist? Young hero, please stay and rest for a few days. When I have properly dealt with this disaster, I will make a special trip to thank you, young hero. Suyu gently waved his hand. There is no need to thank me. You only need to tell me the specific location of the Wolf Smoke Tribe. My time is limited, and I cannot stay in the Rising Sun Tribe for long. Chapter 1906. Young hero, it seems like you really are an outsider. Mingguang stroked his beard and said, The Wolf Smoke Tribe is a tribe on the back of a savage beast. They have no fixed residence and are constantly moving. They rely on robbing small tribes to survive. No one knows where they are at the moment, unless we can capture some of the Wolf Smoke Tribe members alive. This way, we can still determine the location of their tribe through soul searching. Is that so? If he had known earlier, he would have just grabbed a dozen or so captives and searched their souls. From the looks of it, he could only wait for them to come and take revenge on their own. Young hero, although I don't know why you're looking for the Wolf Smoke Tribe, it's better not to provoke a vicious tribe that mainly plunder. Didn't you see that even a medium-sized tribe like our Rising Sun Tribe has suffered devastating damage? Suyu nodded. Yes, I understand. Seeing that he had given up, Mingguang said, Recently, the grassland has not been peaceful. Don't travel alone anymore. Stay in the Rising Sun Tribe. If you want to go to the Holy Mountain, we will set off in half a year to escort Faith to the Holy Mountain. You can also come with us. He only needed to wait for half a year? Suyu nodded slightly. Faith was delivered once every 100 years. It was truly a stroke of luck for him to encounter it this time. That's fine. Half a year is enough for me to finish everything, Suyu said calmly. Mingguang didn't understand what he meant and thought that he had other things to deal with, so he said, Young hero can rest assured and stay here. If there's anything you need, just tell Dyer. She will arrange it for you. Thank you. Mingguang nodded. I'll go repair the space first. You and Dyer rest well. After he finished speaking, he hurried to repair the space's damage, leaving Suyu and Dyer alone at the peak of the mountain. Senior, why don't you let me say it? Butterfly asked. Suyu's expression was calm. So what if I say it? I am an outsider, yet I have the power to kill the 3 chiefs. I will only be feared and ostracized by your tribe. Hearing this, Dyer came to a sudden realization. She felt that this was very reasonable. Senior has considered everything thoroughly. You don't need to call me senior, as my cultivation isn't much higher than yours, Suyu said. My name is Suyu, so you can just call me by my name. Dyer hesitated for a moment before carefully saying, Then, should I call you Senior Su? If it was Qin Xiener, she would surely call Suyu brother with a smile. Whatever, Suyu said calmly. Since he had nothing else to do, he examined Dyer's cultivation and asked, How long have you been stuck at the peak of the Overlord level? Give him pointers on his cultivation? Butterfly disagreed. She had only been able to advance by leaps and bounds under her grandfather's guidance for a long period of time. If others did not understand her cultivation process, no matter how strong they were, their guidance would be limited. 1 year, Butterfly said. Suyu nodded lightly and suddenly, a silver flame shot out of his eyes. Immediately, Dyer felt a sharp pain in her head, as if her soul was being burned. She couldn't help but scream. Then, his soul suddenly relaxed, as if something attached to his soul had been burned away. His entire soul seemed light and agile. Senior, you. Dai-Er's face was full of shock as she asked in bewilderment. Do you often feel an indescribable piercing pain in your soul? Do you occasionally feel your soul becoming unstable? Do you also feel tired easily? Suyu asked casually. Dai-Er's delicate body trembled and her eyes widened. These situations had indeed happened, but she had never mentioned it to anyone, not even her grandfather. He had only taken a glance. How could he possibly understand it so clearly? She looked at Suyu with reverence. Not daring to hide anything, she nodded and said, "Yes." Suyu did not ask any more questions. He only calmly reminded her, "Do not absorb the power of faith to cultivate. Although the effects are good, the drawbacks are very serious. It is not something you can bear." Dai-Er's face was deathly pale. She averted her gaze and trembled as she said, "Senior Su, please don't tell my grandfather." Faith was something that only holy kings could enjoy. It was usually absorbed by the black statue and not taken away by outsiders to cultivate. She had accidentally discovered that absorbing faith could speed up her cultivation, so she always secretly absorbed it. Once this matter was exposed and reported to Chief Ri Donglai, the lightest punishment would be having her cultivation crippled. In the worst case, she would be chased out of the Rising Sun tribe. Just like Shan Lingfei, she would be reduced to a lone wolf on the grassland. "From now on, come here once a day to help you nourish your soul," Suyu said as he stared at her. In his eyes, Dai-Er's soul was riddled with holes. Perhaps it was because her soul was not strong enough, but the injuries to her soul were even more serious. If she did not find a way to repair it, her soul would be permanently damaged and her cultivation would no longer be able to progress. In the worst case, her soul would collapse and she would die. Did something happen to my soul? Dai-Er secretly guessed. However, she had experienced Suyu's unfathomable strength, so she nodded obediently. For the next few days, Suyu stayed in a small thatched hut nearby. Every time her grandfather repaired the space, Dai-Er would sneak into Suyu's room. His method of nourishing her soul was very simple. He used his own soul to envelop her entire soul and slowly instilled soul energy into her to repair the damage caused by the worms. With his soul energy at the level of a king of 3 crowns, it was very easy for him to repair the soul of a peak overlord. It could even be said to be effortless. Moreover, this was also Suyu's attempt to make more wonderful uses of the soul, striving to meet the requirements for entering the Taishu Xian temple the next time. At first, when Dai-Er's soul was repaired, she felt so much pain that she wanted to die. It was as if a piece of flesh had been ruthlessly sliced off from her body with a knife. However, she could feel that after being nourished, her soul had indeed undergone beneficial changes. After a few days, the occasional pain in her soul and the symptoms of fatigue in the past slowly subsided. Feeling the magic, Dai-Er took the initiative to come to receive nourishment every day. In a flash, a whole month had passed. The post-war reconstruction of the Rising Sun tribe had been settled, and most of the cavern worlds had been restored to their original state. The injured were treated and most of them recovered. The atmosphere of sadness was still pervading. The spread of faith was unprecedentedly strong, and the daily power of faith absorbed was more than 20 times that of the past. Many of the cavern worlds that had been robbed of the black statues had actually recovered a lot of the power of faith in just a month. Waiting for the day of offering to the holy mountain, the amount of power of faith could exceed the previous amount. Therefore, the kings of the Rising Sun tribe gradually settled down. As long as they could still hand in the power of faith, they could still survive. Dong. On this day, the alarm bell rang and was transmitted to all the cavern world. It was the tribal chief Ri Donglai who had summoned the rulers of the various cavern worlds. Mingguang heard the sound and immediately rushed to Ri Donglai's cavern world. When he came, almost all the rulers were present, about tens of thousands of them. Among them, there were less than 100 kings like Mingguang. Not all the rulers of the cavern world were at the emperor level. Most of them were at the half-step emperor level. They gathered above the dense forest, each of them stepping on the top of a tree, staring at Ri Donglai, who had recovered from his injuries. Everyone, after this battle, from now on, we must be ready for war at any time. Ri Donglai took a deep breath. The lesson of a month ago was too profound. Because of the lag of the news, they didn't know that the Holy Mountain had issued an order to allow war. They were unprepared, which was why the Rising Sun tribe took advantage of the loopholes and suffered heavy casualties. In addition, we should send messengers to be stationed around the Holy Mountain. Always pay attention to the news of the Holy Mountain, and beware of similar things happening again. Ri Donglai said. Everyone nodded. Next, the rulers of the major cavern worlds reported the recent situation after the war. When the last ruler finished his report, Ri Donglai said sorrowfully, "After this disaster, everyone will be united and continue to create better conditions for the living." Dismissed. At this time, a young half-step emperor said, "Is that all? Aren't we going to take revenge?" What the chief meant was that the war was over. The controller of his cavern world had fallen in the war, so he took over and became the new controller. After a month, he could not forget the scene of the ruler being killed by the Wolf Smoke tribe warriors with his own body in order to protect the creatures of the cavern world. He didn't understand why the Rising Sun tribe had no desire to take revenge. Were the deaths of the clansmen all in vain? Hearing this, many rulers were silent and secretly sighed. After all, he was still too young. Ri Donglai let out a long sigh. He had seen too many such young and hot-blooded rulers. It's not that we don't want to take revenge, but we have to bear the burden for the living. If only we are present in the Rising Sun tribe, then we would rather die in glory than live in dishonor. We will kill our way into the Wolf Smoke tribe and repay this hatred with blood. But we still have our own cavern world creatures to protect. If we die, who will protect them? His sincere and heartfelt words caused the young administrator to fall silent. Yes, they still had many creatures in the cavern world to protect. It wasn't that they were weak and didn't dare to retaliate, but they couldn't retaliate. Mingguang had seen many similar things. Every time, Ri Donglai would use the same words to dispel the young man's thoughts of revenge. Once, twice, thrice, it was the same every time. His words weren't wrong, but was it really to protect the remaining clansmen, as he said, and not because they were cowardly and didn't dare to take revenge against the powerful Wolf Smoke tribe? The old people present understood that the truth was the latter. Even if their entire tribe joined forces against the Wolf Smoke tribe, it would still be like hitting a stone with an egg. Therefore, they didn't have the courage to take revenge. If they really retaliated against the Wolf Smoke tribe, what would they do if they attacked again? Just like now, they had just attacked once and wouldn't come again in a short period of time. There was really no need to provoke them and lead to a greater war disaster. All the rulers had a tacit understanding. At this moment, they didn't even dare to provoke the Wolf Smoke tribe, for fear that they would come again. Only in this way could they obtain temporary peace. Unfortunately, the tree wants peace, but the wind never ceases. Wolves would never stop killing sheep because of their cowardice and obedience. Xiao, just as the meeting was about to end, a wild beast broke into the Rising Sun tribe without any resistance. The wild beast's body was covered with the heads of the Rising Sun tribe. A rough count showed that there were 100 heads densely packed together. Chapter 1907. Mingguang stood at the back and immediately made a move, killing the savage beast that rushed in with a palm strike. The savage beast whimpered and fell to the ground. The hundreds of heads hanging on its body rolled in all directions like gourds. This scene made the cavern world masters present change their expressions. They stared at the heads on the ground in shock and anger. It's the warriors patrolling the border of the tribe. The identity of the heads was quickly confirmed. Since the war, the Rising Sun tribe has been vigilant. They strengthened the vigilance around the Rising Sun tribe and organized 10 patrol teams of hundreds of people. They have the fastest savage beast of the Rising Sun tribe, and their mobility is very strong. Once they find an enemy approaching, they can immediately detect it and send the news back to the tribe in time. Mingguang's eyes flashed with a dignified color. To be precise, it's a complete patrol team. An entire patrol team had been killed without any warning, and without anyone escaping. This was enough to show that they suffered an unprecedentedly powerful and sudden attack. Ri Donglai's face suddenly sank and he gritted his teeth. Who did it? The answer was clear to everyone: the Wolf Smoke Tribe. The biggest threat in their vicinity was the Wolf Smoke Tribe. However, no one was willing to admit it, or dare not admit it. They didn't even have the intention to take revenge, let alone provoke the Wolf Smoke Tribe. Why did they kill the patrol team? Was it a coincidence that he happened to pass by? Roar! At this moment, another savage beast roared and rushed into the Rising Sun Tribe. Another 100 heads hung on its body. This time, before it could rush into the cavern world, it was killed by the vigilant Rising Sun Tribe warriors. Ri Donglai and the other cavern world masters came to the outside world and stared at the fallen savage beast with an extremely ugly expression. It's the Wolf Smoke Tribe. It's them. They are coming again. Panic spread among the crowd, as well as among the caretakers of the cavern world. Ri Donglai's eyes suddenly turned cold and he shouted, "Don't panic! Maybe the other tribes are passing by nearby." Roar! As if responding to his words, savage beasts rushed from all directions one after another. Without exception, they carried hundreds of heads on their back. A total of 8. In other words, all the warriors responsible for patrolling the border were killed in an instant, and no one had time to report. When the last batch of savage beasts was shot, a few words came into everyone's sight. An eye for an eye. Ri Donglai's pupils constricted. Those words were the unique words of the Wolf Smoke Tribe. It's them, they really came back for revenge. We must have killed their warriors in the battle and angered them. It's over. 10 patrol teams were destroyed at the same time. There is only one explanation. We are surrounded by the Wolf Smoke Tribe. We are completely surrounded. Only the Wolf Smoke Tribe has such a large military force. We are really doomed. Ri Donglai's mind went blank for a while, and his 5 fingers clenched tightly. What did the Wolf Smoke Tribe want? You killed their people and stole their faith, yet you're not willing to let it go. You want to repay the debt with blood? Come, set up another 10 patrol teams and inquire about the news in all directions. Each patrol team will be led by a cavern world controller. Ri Donglai held the last trace of luck. It was impossible for the Wolf Smoke Tribe to launch an all-out attack on them. If they really destroyed the Rising Sun Tribe, what benefits could they get? It was far better to plunder them from time to time and have them provide a steady stream of faith. Soon, 10 cavern world administrators volunteered to come forward. Among them, there was a single crown emperor. Your task this time is not to fight with the enemy, but to find out which tribe is harassing our border. Once you find out, immediately send back the news. Ri Donglai emphasized. They were vigilant and careful on this trip. If they only investigated, it would be very difficult for the enemy to catch them all in one fell swoop without giving them time to send back the news. It could be said that it was almost impossible. Everyone nodded and made all kinds of preparations for defense and escape. They solemnly moved forward in 10 directions. As long as they saw the enemy from afar, they would immediately send back the news. Time passed little by little. After half a day, still no one sent back a message. Ri Donglai sat above the tribe, contemplating and staring into the distance. No news was good news. They could see from the side that they did not find a large-scale enemy. However, at this moment, 10 sharp screeches pierced the sky. In 10 directions, a vulture unique to the holy mountain flew over, with 10 bloody heads hanging from each of their neck. The master of the cavern world of the single crown emperor was also among them. The vulture flew over the tribe, shook its body, and shook off all the heads. Those heads were destroyed by some kind of predetermined force in midair, turning into a blood mist on the spot. Looking from afar, the blood mist condensed into 4 big words. Blood debt must be paid in blood. At this moment, Ri Donglai's face was completely solemn. The cavern world controller's face also sank, as if the end of the world was coming. Their faces were full of worry. Who is it? Who is it? The single crown emperor powerhouse made a move, but they still couldn't send back any news. They didn't even know who the enemy was. Mingguang's eyes trembled, gritted his teeth, and said, "Leader, we can't wait any longer. Gather the troops and prepare for battle." Ri Donglai's heart trembled, clenched his fists tightly, and said in a low voice, "Wait. Without figuring out the enemy's true intentions, don't act rashly. We can't fight casually. Maybe there is some misunderstanding between us and the enemy." Mingguang's old face showed humiliation. Sure enough, as he guessed, it was not that their leader cared about his people and endured the humiliation, but that he had long lost the courage to fight. The enemy clearly stated that blood debt must be paid in blood, but he didn't even have the courage to fight. He was still lying to himself. What kind of misunderstanding could make the enemy not hesitate to send an army? Come. Set up a messenger group to communicate with the other party and determine where we offended the other party. Ri Donglai once again mobilized a team. A total of 10 people, all composed of the cavern world controller. On the back of each person, there was a white flag asking for peace, indicating that they had no intention of fighting. The messenger group soon set off, choosing a direction and galloping away. Ri Donglai and many cavern world controllers waited anxiously in place, feeling uneasy. "I hope that the messenger group can gain something, at least we can figure out who is the one who attacked us." "No problem, the 2 armies will not kill the messenger group will be fine." Boom, boom, boom. The earth trembled, and 10 beasts came back with 10 complete corpses. The messenger group. It was their corpses, not a single one was missed. All of their necks were broken alive, and the white flags on their backs were inserted into their back. Each flag had a huge eye-catching bloody word. Combined together, it was, "Blood debt must be paid in blood, the rising sun will not be spared." Seeing the cross, everyone's heart completely sank. The messenger group was also beheaded, indicating that there was no possibility of asking for peace. The other party just wanted to kill everyone in the Rising Sun tribe. Mingguang said hatefully, "Leader, don't hesitate anymore, blow the horn of war." Ri Donglai's face was gloomy and uncertain. He clenched his fists and said, "No. We can't rashly start a war. If we die, what about the creatures in the cavern world? We are willing to perish together with the enemy. Don't worry about us, even if we die, we will drag the enemy down with us. Lord, please fight." Tens of thousands of cavern world creatures issued a strong will for revenge. Ri Donglai's heart trembled. Facing the strong desire of the creatures to fight, he clenched his teeth and shouted, "No! For you, we can't rush. We die without regrets. We are not afraid of death. Don't worry about us." The will of all living beings covered his words. "Shut up. This war can't start, I am doing it for your own good. I have made up my mind, no one can defy me." Ri Donglai exerted his majestic power to forcibly suppress the will of all living beings. Seeing this scene, Mingguang laughed at himself. In the name of being of the same race, what was the reality? It was just that they were afraid of death, so they didn't dare to fight. Mingguang completely lost his confidence in the leader. "Leader, are you afraid of death?" Among the cavern world rulers, a very contemptuous voice came out. Looking at the source of the voice, the speaker was the trusted cavern world ruler who previously asked for revenge. He stared at Ri Donglai, his eyes full of contempt. "You keep saying that you are the creatures of the cavern world, but they are still not afraid of death and are willing to fight to the death. As the leader, you make excuses and even say that you will protect them. In fact, you are afraid that you will die if you fight, right?" Ri Donglai coldly looked at him, his eyes were cold. "Say that again." The young man laughed and said, You don't dare to take revenge, and the enemy is still deceiving himself. What kind of leader is this? You are not worthy to be our leader. Redonglai's eyes flashed, and his figure disappeared in an instant. When he appeared again, he appeared behind the young man and slammed his palm on his head. The young man's head was instantly smashed like a watermelon. A mist of blood splashed on Redonglai, adding a bit of ferocity to his face. He shouted majestically, questioning the leader and disturbing the morale of the army, "Kill without mercy." Suddenly, many cavern world rulers were furious. The enemy was pressing on, and he was afraid to fight. He was as timid as a mouse. However, he was cruel and merciless to his own people, killing them at the slightest disagreement. What kind of leader was this? Dismiss him. This kind of person is not worthy to be our leader. If he doesn't want to fight, we will fight ourselves, form an army and kill our way out. I would rather die standing than kneeling. The leader doesn't dare to fight, but we dare. Roars sounded one after another. Redonglai's eyes were cold and he flashed past them one by one, slapping them to death. His actions were decisive and ruthless. After killing dozens of people in a row, the shouting gradually stopped. Redonglai was covered in the blood of his own people. His eyes were cold, and his expression was extremely majestic. He said, "At this critical moment, you should believe in your leader instead of questioning him. If anyone has any objections, die." After killing dozens of people in a row, they were afraid of him, so they dared not speak out.